Imagine walking through the ruins of an ancient city, where every stone whispers secrets no one has fully uncovered. History, we are told, is written in facts, dates, battles, names carved into monuments. But beneath those layers lies a darker, stranger truth. Mysteries that refuse to be explained, questions that echo across centuries. Why do certain artifacts defy the technology of their time? Who built colossal structures that still baffle modern engineers? And what shadows linger around the lives of people whose stories end not with answers, but with silence? These are not just tales of the past. They are puzzles that continue to haunt us, bending the line between history and legend. From massacres frozen in time to texts no scholar can decode. From tombs holding chilling secrets to civilizations that vanished without reason, the past is filled with enigmas designed to unsettle and provoke wonder. So prepare yourself for a journey through the most haunting and fascinating mysteries ever recorded. Sit back, stay curious, and let's dive into the shadows of history. Mysteries that will give you chills. On the quiet island of Öland, off the southeastern coast of Sweden, lies a site that seems at first glance no different from any other Iron Age settlement. Grassy fields stretch under the northern sun, interrupted only by the gentle rise of low stone walls, remnants of long abandoned houses and fortifications. This is Sandby Borg, a ring fort built nearly 1,600 years ago, its circular walls once guarding the lives within from the uncertainty of the outside world. Today, the fort seems peaceful, almost idyllic. Yet beneath this calm surface lies a story so dark it shakes our understanding of what daily life in the past could hold. Archaeologists first unearthed the extraordinary evidence in 2010. Inside the fort's stone walls, they discovered a scene frozen in time. The remains of more than 20 people, all men, women, and children, whose lives ended violently, seemingly in a single catastrophic event. Unlike typical battlefield casualties, there were no mass graves, no signs of hurried burial. These individuals were found where they had fallen, their bodies bearing marks of blunt force trauma and weapon strikes. Forensic analysis revealed wounds inflicted from behind, indicating that they were caught unaware, attacked within the supposed safety of their homes. The fort itself tells part of the story. Built with thick stone walls and narrow entrances, Sandby Borg was clearly designed for defense. Yet, whatever force entered did so decisively, overwhelming the inhabitants with brutality and precision. Who could have done this? And why? Scholars point to regional unrest during the migration period, when tribal conflicts and shifts in power were frequent. Perhaps it was a raid from neighboring tribes, or an act of revenge from enemies long forgotten. But if this was simply a violent incursion, why leave the victims where they fell? Why was there no effort to loot or claim spoils, as would have been typical for raids of the time? Even more puzzling are the artifacts found alongside the bodies. Everyday items, clay pots, tools, and personal belongings lie untouched, as if the world stopped in an instant. One can almost imagine the final moments. Families fleeing their homes, desperate cries silenced by the force that swept through the fort. Yet there are no written records, no chroniclers to tell us who they were or what fate brought them to such an end. The silence of history is total, leaving only bones, stone, and the faint echo of a life abruptly ended. As researchers examined the remains, subtle anomalies emerged. The positioning of some bodies suggested that not all were killed in the same moment, hinting at a sequence of events that is difficult to reconstruct. Some skeletons show evidence of multiple injuries, possibly indicating a struggle over time. Were the victims rounded up and executed systematically? Was there a single, decisive strike? Or was this an ongoing terror executed over hours or even days? These questions deepen the mystery, leaving modern observers with more uncertainty than clarity. Speculation has inevitably grown around Sandby Borg, as it often does with sites so unusually preserved. Could it have been an internal conflict, a massacre carried out by a rival faction within the community? Or might it have been a punitive expedition by a local ruler asserting control, perhaps over perceived betrayal or a dispute over land or resources? Some fringe theories even suggest ritualistic elements, noting the precise, almost staged placement of certain bodies. Yet these ideas remain speculative, as no clear evidence points to religious or ceremonial motives. Archaeologists continue to debate what caused the massacre. DNA studies have provided tantalizing hints. Some victims may have been related, while others came from different parts of the island or even beyond. This diversity raises further questions. Was Sandby Borg a hub for trade or migration, attracting outsiders who might have been caught in a political conflict? Or were these outsiders the perpetrators themselves, slipping through the fort's defenses and vanishing as swiftly as they appeared? Walking through the site today, one can almost sense the weight of history pressing against the modern landscape. The grass grows tall where children once played. Stones that once rang with the clatter of daily life now lie silent. And yet, the fort holds its secrets close. Archaeologists carefully map and record, analyzing bone fragments and pottery shards, attempting to reconstruct not just who lived here, but how they died and why. Every discovery seems to answer one question while raising several more. What makes Sandby Borg uniquely haunting is not simply the violence, but the intimacy of the tragedy. Unlike battlefields where thousands clash and individual lives are lost anonymously, here the horror is personal. Every household holds a story, every artifact a silent witness to an event that froze an entire community in its final, fatal moments. The site serves as a reminder that history is not always orderly, that the past contains fractures and voids we may never fully understand. And so the fort stands, a circular sentinel of unanswered questions. We know the what, the victims and their injuries. We can infer the when, the late Roman Iron Age, a time of social upheaval in Northern Europe. But the why, the motive, the instigator, the full sequence of events, remains elusive. Sandby Borg is a riddle carved into stone and flesh, one that challenges our assumptions about human nature, about safety, and about the stories history chooses to remember or forget. Who were these people? Who killed them? And perhaps most chillingly of all, what might still be hidden, waiting beneath the layers of earth for someone to finally uncover? As we leave the windswept fields of Sandby Borg, where ancient violence froze lives in a single tragic moment, we journey southward in both time and imagination, to a place where death was not sudden, but ceremonial, and where the opulence of the afterlife meets the silence of eternity. Deep in the heart of Mexico, beneath the dense canopy of the Yucatan jungle, lies a tomb that has captivated archaeologists and historians alike. The resting place of the woman known to the modern world as the Crimson Queen. The tomb, discovered in 2006 within the ancient city of Palenque, is remarkable even at first glance. Narrow corridors carved from limestone led to a burial chamber sealed for more than 13 centuries. The air, still and cool, holds the faint scent of earth and decay. Inside, the walls are etched with intricate glyphs, their meanings partially understood but layered with enigmatic symbols that hint at rituals long forgotten. And there, at the center of the chamber, lies the skeleton of a woman adorned with the remnants of a crown, jade ornaments, and red cinnabar powder that dusted her bones like blood frozen in time. An ominous, haunting tribute that earned her the title of the Crimson Queen. Who was she? Historians suggest she may have been a powerful ruler, perhaps a queen or a priestess, whose influence shaped the fate of Palenque during the late classic period of Maya civilization. Yet despite her apparent prominence, almost nothing about her life is known. Unlike kings whose names are recorded in hieroglyphs and monuments, the Crimson Queen exists primarily through her tomb, a silent witness to her own story, inviting questions rather than offering answers. The discovery of her burial site raised immediate intrigue. The preservation was extraordinary. The cinnabar covering, though toxic, may have acted as a natural preservative, keeping the remains remarkably intact. Alongside her lay an array of funerary offerings, jewelry, ceremonial objects, and carved figurines, each seemingly chosen with deliberate care. But the selection and placement of these objects are as puzzling as they are precise. Did they represent personal possessions, symbols of divine authority, or protective charms for the afterlife? And why do some items appear incomplete, almost as if removed or disturbed at some point before the tomb was sealed permanently? Adding to the mystery is the tomb's location itself. Buried beneath the Temple of the Inscriptions, one of Palenque's grandest structures, the Crimson Queen's resting place was hidden beneath layers of stone and history. Was this concealment an attempt to protect her remains from enemies, or a ritualistic choice reflecting Maya beliefs about death and the underworld? Scholars have debated these possibilities, suggesting that the careful placement beneath the temple may have aligned with astronomical events, linking her burial to cosmic cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Some theories stretch even further. Certain glyphs in the tomb hint at the queen's potential role in political or religious upheavals, though interpretations vary widely. Could her death have been natural, or was it part of a larger, perhaps violent, power struggle within Palenque? The presence of particular offerings, unusual in comparison to contemporary tombs, has led some researchers to speculate that she may have been a high-ranking priestess, possibly overseeing rituals that bridged life and the divine. And yet, no inscriptions definitively record her deeds, leaving her legacy cloaked in ambiguity. The physical state of the remains adds another layer to the enigma. Analysis shows the woman was middle-aged at the time of death, but her bones also reveal signs of ailments that suggest a life of both privilege and strain. Some researchers point to subtle trauma, perhaps the result of ceremonial practices or ritualistic procedures common among elite Maya women. Others caution that interpreting these marks is inherently speculative, a reminder of the delicate balance between science and imagination when confronting ancient mysteries. Perhaps most haunting is the crimson pigment itself. Cinnabar was rare and highly prized in Maya culture, used to signify status, power, and even sanctity. Its presence on the queen's remains is striking, transforming the chamber into a visual testament to mortality, prestige, and ritual significance. But why this particular tomb? Why this particular individual? Was she one of many, or singular in her prominence and symbolic importance? And what of the corridor leading to the burial chamber? Has it concealed secrets still beyond our grasp, waiting for future exploration with technology and methods not yet conceived? The story of the Crimson Queen also invites broader questions about the Maya civilization and their approach to death. Unlike the abrupt tragedy at Sandby Borg, here death was layered with ceremony, designed to preserve memory, assert power, and perhaps communicate with the divine. Yet the silence surrounding her identity reminds us that even in highly sophisticated societies, individual lives, even those of rulers and elites, can vanish from history's records, leaving only tantalizing traces for us to ponder. As archaeologists continue to study the tomb, from advanced imaging techniques to chemical analysis of the pigments and artifacts, the Crimson Queen retains her air of mystery. Each discovery answers a question while posing several more, underscoring how little we truly know about those who shaped Palenque's history and the complexities of Maya culture. The tomb is a bridge to the past, but it is also a reminder of the limits of human understanding, a place where science meets speculation and certainty dissolves into wonder. And so we leave the chamber, stepping carefully back into the sunlight filtering through the dense jungle canopy, carrying with us the image of a figure both regal and unreachable. The Crimson Queen rests still, her identity and her story held in the quiet sanctity of stone and earth. Who she was, what role she played in Palenque's history, and why she was buried in such an extraordinary manner remain questions without answers. Her tomb, magnificent and haunting, invites us to reflect on the lives lost to time, the civilizations that rose and fell, and the enduring mysteries that continue to whisper from the shadows of history. What secrets might yet lie hidden within the walls of the tomb, waiting to be uncovered by those willing to listen to the echoes of a world long past? As we step away from the intricate symbols of the Rohonc Codex, leaving behind a manuscript that has defied understanding for centuries, our journey of historical enigmas carries us eastward, across oceans and time, to the rolling hills and verdant plains of ancient Japan. Here, hidden beneath layers of earth and the quiet brush of nature, lie the Kofun burial mounds, monumental tombs whose sheer scale and mystery continue to captivate archaeologists and historians alike. The Kofun, constructed between the 3rd and 7th centuries CE, are immediately striking in their form. Many rise hundreds of feet above the surrounding landscape, often shaped like keyholes, with circular mounds joined to elongated rectangular platforms. From the air, the geometric precision of these structures is remarkable, suggesting an advanced understanding of planning and construction. The largest, the Daisen Kofun in Osaka, stretches nearly half a mile long, its massive presence a silent testament to the power and influence of those interred within. Inside these mounds, archaeologists have uncovered burial chambers meticulously crafted from stone and timber, designed to preserve the remains of emperors, nobles, and elite figures. Many contain haniwa, clay figurines of warriors, animals, and attendants, arranged as if to accompany the dead into the afterlife. The artistry is both elaborate and symbolic, each piece carefully placed, yet the meaning of many haniwa remains elusive. What roles did these figures serve? Were they guardians, servants, or symbolic markers of status? And why were some placed in seemingly random patterns, defying expectations of order? Despite centuries of study, much about the Kofun remains shrouded in secrecy. Japan's imperial tombs are, to this day, largely off-limits to archaeological excavation, preserving the sanctity of the site but limiting our understanding of what lies within. Ground-penetrating surveys and historical records provide glimpses. We know the tombs were reserved for the highest echelons of society, often accompanied by treasures, ceremonial objects, and evidence of complex funerary rites. Yet, without direct access, the precise contents and the full stories of those buried remain hidden from the modern world. Some of the most compelling mysteries surround the construction itself. How were such massive mounds built with the technology available at the time? The sheer volume of earth, stone, and timber required for these tombs implies a highly organized workforce and advanced engineering knowledge. Did these builders employ tools and techniques that have since been lost to history? And what of the alignment of certain mounds with celestial events, such as solstices or equinoxes? Was this intentional, reflecting cosmological beliefs, or coincidental? Scholars have also debated the symbolic aspects of the Kofun. The keyhole shape, unique to this era in Japan, has been interpreted in many ways. A fusion of native and continental influences, a representation of power and authority, or even a symbolic map connecting the earthly and spiritual realms. Haniwa figurines further deepen the enigma. Some depict elaborate military formations or mythical creatures, while others appear almost whimsical. A dog, a farmer, a dancer. Are these literal reflections of society, protective spirits, or encoded messages meant only for the deceased? Beyond the structures themselves, the Kofun period raises questions about social organization and political power in early Japan. The tombs suggest a society capable of mobilizing vast resources, yet written records from the time are scarce. Did these mounds represent centralized authority, a burgeoning imperial system, or the influence of powerful regional clans? And how did interactions with neighboring cultures, such as Korea and China, influence the construction, style, and ceremonial practices evident in these tombs? Even more speculative are the fringe theories that have grown around the Kofun. Some suggest the tombs were constructed with hidden chambers or secret passages, possibly containing treasures, sacred texts, or records of ancient knowledge. Others speculate that the sheer size of certain mounds and their precise alignment could indicate astronomical observatories or symbolic representations of celestial events. While these ideas remain unproven, they underscore the sense of awe that these silent earthen giants inspire, a reminder that the past often holds more questions than answers. Walking among the Kofun today, one cannot help but feel the weight of history pressing down from the hills. Grass sways gently over the mounds, concealing centuries of ritual and reverence. The Haniwa, weathered by time, stand as silent witnesses to the lives and ambitions of those who shaped early Japan. And yet, for all their grandeur, the tombs speak more in silence than in fact. They remind us that history is not only what is recorded, but also what is hidden, protected, and preserved beyond reach. The Kofun burial mounds, in their mystery and magnificence, invite reflection. Who were the people whose lives warranted such monumental memorials? What stories of power, ritual, and belief lie buried beneath the earth? And how much remains concealed, beyond the reach of scholars and explorers, waiting for a future generation to uncover its secrets? In contemplating these questions, we are reminded that the past is never fully accessible. It is layered, fractured, and at times deliberately obscured. The Kofun are not merely tombs. They are gateways to the unknown, symbols of ambition, devotion, and the enduring human desire to be remembered. They challenge us to consider what has been lost, what has been preserved, and what might still be waiting beneath the hills, silent and enigmatic, for those willing to look closely and imagine. As we close the enigmatic pages of the Rohonc Codex, leaving behind a manuscript whose secrets tease and evade our understanding, our journey of historical mysteries carries us eastward across continents and centuries. From the cryptic symbols of a distant European manuscript, we arrive in the rolling hills and quiet plains of ancient Japan, where monumental earthen structures rise from the landscape, silent witnesses to a civilization long past. These are the Kofun burial mounds, colossal tombs whose scale and precision speak of power, ritual, and a desire to leave a mark that transcends time. The Kofun, constructed between the 3rd and 7th centuries CE, immediately command attention. Some stretch hundreds of feet in length, their keyhole shapes, circular mounds attached to elongated rectangular platforms, visible even from the sky. Their presence is both awe-inspiring and puzzling. How could early societies without modern machinery mobilize the labor, materials, and planning required to construct such tombs? The largest, the Daisen Kofun in Osaka, stretches nearly half a mile, its sheer size a testament to the influence of the elite buried within. Inside these mounds lie burial chambers of timber and stone, designed to protect the remains of emperors, nobles, and high-ranking figures. Surrounding them, archaeologists have found haniwa, clay figurines depicting warriors, animals, dancers, and attendants, placed as if to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Yet the precise meaning of these figures remains elusive. Were they symbolic guardians, representations of daily life, or spiritual intermediaries? Some are arranged in formations suggesting ritual or ceremony. Others appear almost whimsical, defying interpretation. Even more mysterious is the limited access to these tombs. Many imperial Kofun remain off-limits to researchers, preserving both their sanctity and their secrets. Ground surveys and historical records provide hints, but the full contents and the stories of those interred remain beyond reach. This secrecy invites speculation. What treasures, artifacts, or records lie hidden beneath the layers of Earth? And what might they reveal about the political, social, and spiritual life of early Japan? The scale and design of the Kofun hint at a sophisticated understanding of engineering, organization, and perhaps even astronomy. Some mounds align with celestial events, suggesting ritual or cosmological significance. The keyhole shape itself, unique to this period and culture, remains a source of debate. Was it purely symbolic, an assertion of political power, or a reflection of spiritual beliefs connecting the earthly and divine realms? And what of the Haniwa, whose detailed forms and repetitive motifs suggest hidden codes or ceremonial meanings lost to time? The Kofun period also raises broader questions about society and hierarchy. The ability to construct such monumental tombs implies highly organized communities, capable of mobilizing resources on an unprecedented scale. Were these mounds expressions of centralized imperial authority or the legacy of powerful regional clans competing for dominance? And how did interactions with neighboring cultures influence the construction, artistic expression, and ritual practices observed in these tombs? Speculative theories naturally arise. Some researchers suggest that the mounds could conceal hidden chambers containing knowledge, treasures, or objects of ceremonial significance yet to be discovered. Others point to the precise placement and alignment of certain structures as evidence of lost astronomical or calendrical knowledge. While these ideas remain unproven, they underscore the fascination and reverence the Kofun inspire, a reminder that even in the absence of written records, the past communicates through stone, earth, and design. Walking among the Kofun today, one is struck by their quiet majesty. Grass sways gently over the mounds, the Haniwa weathered yet steadfast, standing as silent witnesses to the ambitions, beliefs, and lives of those who shaped early Japan. They evoke a sense of continuity and mystery, reminders that history is not a single narrative, but a layered tapestry woven with triumphs, rituals, and enigmas that survive only in fragments. The Kofun are more than tombs. They are gateways to a world we can glimpse but never fully know. Who were the people interred here? What ceremonies marked their passage to the afterlife? And what secrets remain buried beneath the earth, waiting for the curious, the patient, and the daring to uncover them? As we move beyond the rolling hills and silent tombs of the Kofun, we carry with us the realization that history is both present and hidden. From cryptic manuscripts to monumental earthworks, the past continually challenges us, asking not only what we can know, but what might forever remain a mystery, waiting to be discovered, questioned, and imagined. As we leave behind the monumental earthworks of Japan's Kofun, where clay figures and carefully constructed mounds speak of a civilization both organized and enigmatic, our journey of historical mysteries draws us southward, across continents and millennia, to the sun-scorched lands of ancient Egypt. Here, beneath the shifting sands and along the banks of the eternal Nile, lies a story not of stone or manuscript, but of words themselves. Words that may have held power, sacredness, or secrets lost to time. These are the tales of the so-called lost golden tongues of ancient Egypt. The term refers not to a single object, but to the extraordinary claim that the ancient Egyptians possessed languages, scripts, or methods of speech imbued with mystical or divine potency, forms of communication that are said to have conveyed knowledge or authority beyond the ordinary. In temples and tombs, hieroglyphs record the deeds of pharaohs, the rituals of priests, and the cosmic order of the universe. Yet some inscriptions hint at phrases, sounds, or incantations that elude full understanding. Could these have been part of a golden tongue, a language of power now irretrievably lost? Egyptian writing itself offers clues and deepens the intrigue. Hieroglyphs, with their intricate pictorial forms, combine sound, meaning, and symbolism in ways that modern linguists continue to decode. Certain words and signs appear only in highly sacred contexts, carved inside the walls of temples, painted on the sarcophagi of the elite, or preserved in papyrus manuscripts reserved for the most learned priests. Some of these words were believed to carry intrinsic power. Spoken, written, or even intoned during ceremonies, they were thought to affect the gods, the elements, and the living world. Could it be that in these carefully guarded expressions, knowledge and power were encoded in ways we can no longer access? Historical evidence supports a culture deeply attuned to the relationship between language and reality. Ritual texts, such as the pyramid texts and later Kofun texts, contain spells and incantations intended to guide the dead through the afterlife. The precision of these words suggests a belief that language itself could shape outcomes, influence the divine, or manipulate forces invisible to the human eye. And yet, despite centuries of study, many phrases resist translation. The subtle meanings, tonal nuances, and ritualistic significance of these words may have been known only to the initiated, fading as the centuries passed and the priests who preserved the knowledge disappeared. Some scholars speculate that the lost golden tongues may have included sounds or pronunciations deliberately hidden from common understanding. Ancient Egyptian was a living language, yet certain sacred forms may have been preserved orally, never inscribed, meant to be heard only in ceremonial contexts. Could these golden forms have encoded mathematical, astronomical, or spiritual knowledge in ways that written symbols alone could not convey? Or were they linguistic tools designed to reinforce social and religious hierarchies, keeping certain wisdom in the hands of the elite? The mystery deepens when we consider artifacts that suggest cross-cultural knowledge. Some inscriptions and symbolic motifs echo designs found in other ancient civilizations, raising questions about the transmission of sacred language. Did the Egyptians develop unique systems of sound and writing in isolation, or were they part of a broader network of esoteric knowledge that spanned continents? And if such knowledge existed, why was it lost, destroyed, deliberately concealed, or simply forgotten over generations? Even the most mundane Egyptian words carry layers of hidden meaning. A single glyph could represent a sound, an object, and an idea simultaneously. In religious texts, repeated formulas were believed to activate spiritual potency. Pharaohs and priests trained extensively in these linguistic arts, suggesting that mastery of language was a form of power in itself. Could there have been words, syllables, or tongues that were never meant for ordinary speech, that worked as keys to manipulate reality, open portals to divine insight, or maintain cosmic balance? Speculative theories abound. Some argue that remnants of the Golden Tongue may survive in later mystical traditions, encoded within magic, numerology, or ceremonial texts. Others suggest the possibility of a lost dialect, a refined and sacred form of Egyptian speech, deliberately erased or transformed as religious practices evolved and power shifted. Even fringe interpretations connect the idea of the Golden Tongue to esoteric knowledge carried across generations, influencing early alchemy, philosophy, and ritual. While these notions cannot be proven, they underscore the allure of a civilization in which words were believed to wield tangible force. Walking through the ruins of temples at Karnak, or the shadowed chambers of the Valley of the Kings today, one is struck by the deliberate care with which every inscription was placed, every utterance preserved. The stone is more than a surface. It is a conduit for memory, authority, and perhaps even unseen power. And yet, in these same spaces, much remains undeciphered, some knowledge irretrievably lost. What the ancients whispered, chanted, or inscribed with sacred intent may be gone, leaving only traces in hieroglyphs, symbols, and ritual fragments. The lost golden tongues, like the Rohonc Codex, the Kofun tombs, or the crypts of the Crimson Queen, remind us that history is not merely a record of events. It is an archive of human intention, belief, and sometimes deliberate concealment. They challenge us to consider the limits of our understanding and the ways in which knowledge can vanish, even when etched in stone or preserved in papyrus. And so we are left with a question that lingers long after the desert winds have shifted the sands. What truths, what powers, and what knowledge might have been encoded in these golden tongues, spoken only once, or whispered in secret, now lost to the centuries? And perhaps most compelling of all, what remnants of that sacred language might still echo faintly in the stones, the inscriptions, or the imagination of those who seek to uncover them? As we leave behind the sacred words and hidden powers of the lost golden tongues, journeying from the sun-scorched temples of Egypt to lands farther north, our path of historical mysteries brings us to the rugged hills and fertile valleys of modern-day Jordan. Here, carved from black basalt and standing over 6 feet tall, is the Moabite stone, better known as the Mesha Stele, a relic that both illuminates and obscures the past. Its inscriptions tell a story of kings and conquests, yet its missing portions leave us suspended in uncertainty, haunted by what may have been lost. Discovered in 1868 in the ancient city of Dibon, the Mesha Stele is remarkable for its age, size, and the clarity of its script. Written in the Moabite language, a close relative of ancient Hebrew, the Stele chronicles the achievements of King Mesha of Moab, a ruler who lived during the 9th century BCE. Its carefully incised lines celebrate military victories, the expansion of territory, and dedications to the Moabite god Chemosh. Yet even as it reveals triumphs, it conceals as much. Large sections of the text are missing, destroyed or fragmented during the stone's tumultuous history. The loss of these portions has fueled intrigue for generations. Scholars can reconstruct parts of the narrative through comparative analysis with biblical texts and other regional inscriptions, but gaps remain, moments where the story abruptly halts, leaving the reader to wonder what events, decrees, or warnings have vanished. What truths did those missing lines hold? Were they accounts of battles that challenged the biblical narrative, details of alliances, or perhaps mentions of events and practices we would otherwise never know existed? Even the surviving text raises questions. King Mesha emphasizes his victories and divine favor, yet scholars debate the accuracy of his claims. Was this a literal recounting or a carefully constructed political message designed to project power and legitimacy to both contemporaries and posterity? And what might the missing fragments reveal about the context of his reign, the nature of Moabite society, or the relationships between neighboring kingdoms? The Stele itself has endured extraordinary circumstances, contributing to the gaps in its story. Shortly after its discovery, local upheaval and mishandling led to the destruction of many fragments. Some pieces were lost entirely, while others were smuggled into private collections or destroyed before scholars could examine them. Modern imaging and reconstruction techniques have allowed partial restoration, yet some information remains beyond reach, tantalizingly out of grasp. These absences are not merely physical, they are historical voids, spaces where narrative, identity, and context have been irretrievably erased. The imagery and style of the Stele invite further contemplation. While primarily a text, the stone's surface features subtle decorative flourishes, lines that divide sections, slight reliefs emphasizing key proclamations, and symbols that may have marked divine authority or ceremonial significance. Could these visual elements hold clues to the missing portions, guiding interpretation even when words are absent? Or were they purely ornamental, meant to reinforce the gravity of the message rather than convey hidden meaning? Speculation naturally follows the gaps. Some suggest that the lost portions might have contained details of treaties, defeats, or internal strife, events a king might prefer to obscure even from future generations. Others propose that the missing sections could have revealed aspects of religious practice, sacred rituals, or political negotiations that challenge conventional understandings of Moabite culture. And some fringe theories even imagine secret codes embedded within the surviving script, patterns that could hint at hidden messages or knowledge lost alongside the destroyed fragments. The Mesha Stele also raises broader questions about the fragility of historical memory. What we know of the ancient Near East comes from sources like this, often incomplete and filtered through the intentions of those who created them. Each missing word, each broken fragment, represents not just a loss of material, but a rupture in the story of human civilization. How many voices, perspectives, and events have vanished simply because the objects that recorded them were destroyed, hidden, or forgotten? Walking among the rocky hills of Dibon today, one can imagine the scene of its original creation. Craftsmen chiseling letters into basalt, priests or scribes supervising the inscriptions, and King Mesha watching his victories immortalized in stone. And yet, even in that moment of assertion and permanence, the future had other plans. Earthquakes, human interference, and the passage of centuries have left the Stele both testament and riddle, a reminder that history is never fully contained, that even the most enduring monuments are vulnerable to time. The surviving inscriptions challenge us to reconstruct a lost world, piece by piece, using fragments, cross-references, and careful interpretation. Yet in the spaces between the words, in the breaks where the stone has crumbled, we encounter the enduring power of absence. The missing portions are as meaningful as the surviving lines, inviting reflection on what was deemed important, what was lost, and what might still remain hidden beneath the layers of earth and the shadows of history. The Moabite stone, in its partial completeness, teaches us that mystery is often inseparable from history itself. It reminds us that every artifact is a bridge to the past, but also a reminder of our limitations, of the stories we may never fully know, the voices that cannot be heard, and the truths that may be forever concealed. And so, standing before the Mesha Stele, we are left with the same question that has captivated historians and archaeologists for over a century. What did those missing portions contain? And what new understanding of a lost kingdom, a vanished culture, or a forgotten story might still lie hidden, waiting, perhaps, for the careful eye, the patient mind, and the curious heart to uncover them? As we leave behind the crumbling basalt of the Mesha Stele, with its missing lines and fractured narrative, our journey of historical mysteries carries us across continents once more to the arid plains of southern Peru. Here, in a landscape both stark and breathtaking, lie the Nasca Cantalloc Aqueducts, an intricate network of underground channels that whisper of a civilization's ingenuity, yet conceal a purpose that continues to elude modern understanding. Stretching across the harsh desert near the city of Nasca, these aqueducts, locally known as puquios, are carved from stone and earth, their entrances resembling spiraling funnels, while the channels themselves disappear into the sands, re-emerging hundreds of meters away. From above, the desert appears almost empty, yet beneath the surface flows a carefully orchestrated system capable of capturing, channeling, and preserving water in one of the driest regions on Earth. The ingenuity of this construction is undeniable, yet their precise purpose and the full extent of the knowledge required to build them remains cloaked in mystery. Archaeologists date the Cantalloc aqueducts to the Nasca culture, which flourished between 100 BCE and 800 CE. The Nasca are better known to the world for their enigmatic geoglyphs, the famous Nasca lines. Yet these subterranean channels demonstrate a mastery of hydraulics and engineering that rivals modern techniques in efficiency and sustainability. The channels maintain a consistent flow, resist collapse, and cleverly regulate water in an environment where every drop is precious. But for all their practical brilliance, questions persist. Were they solely utilitarian, designed to sustain agriculture and settlement, or did they hold symbolic or ritual significance as well? Many mainstream explanations emphasize the necessity of water management in an arid climate. The channels are remarkably precise. They tap underground aquifers, their spiraling vents possibly serving as both airways and access points for maintenance. Some sections extend for kilometers, connecting distant fields and settlements, suggesting an organized society with both technical knowledge and social cooperation sufficient to implement such an ambitious system. Yet despite this practical logic, certain aspects defy easy explanation. Why are some channels oriented in particular geometric patterns, resembling abstract designs when viewed from above? Could these patterns hold meaning beyond irrigation, perhaps linked to astronomy, ritual, or cultural symbolism? The spiraling entrances themselves are an enduring puzzle. Known locally as ojos de agua, or eyes of water, they form perfect circular shapes that repeat across the landscape. Do these shapes serve purely functional purposes, facilitating access to deep channels, or do they carry additional significance? Some researchers speculate that the spirals mark sacred points, align with seasonal cycles, or encode knowledge about the desert's hidden hydrology. Others propose that the locations of the aqueducts may correlate with ceremonial or geoglyph sites, suggesting a deliberate integration of practical infrastructure with ritualistic or cultural frameworks. The Cantalloc system demonstrates an extraordinary understanding of hydrodynamics. Channels are constructed with careful gradients to control flow speed, reduce erosion, and maximize water conservation. The builders clearly understood the subsurface composition of the desert, exploiting natural aquifers while avoiding collapse, a feat that modern engineers study with admiration. Yet the precision and foresight required raise further questions. How did the Nasca acquire such knowledge? Was it passed down orally over generations or encoded in ritual, observation, or early scientific inquiry? Some speculative theories reach beyond the practical. Could the aqueducts have had ceremonial roles, providing water to sacred sites or supporting rituals associated with fertility, harvest, or cosmology? Certain channels appear near geoglyphs or ceremonial complexes, suggesting possible integration of engineering and spiritual practice. Others hypothesize that the Nasca used the aqueducts as a form of environmental signaling, channels aligned to underground springs or geological features, possibly marking territories or communicating knowledge about water sources to distant communities. And yet, without written records or inscriptions, these interpretations remain speculative, tantalizing glimpses into a culture that deliberately left its secrets hidden in plain sight. The Cantalloc aqueducts also challenge assumptions about ancient technology. While irrigation channels are common in many civilizations, the combination of underground construction, precise hydraulic control, and long-term sustainability in a desert climate is extraordinary. These structures imply not only technical expertise but also a social organization capable of planning, labor coordination, and maintenance over centuries. What social, political, or religious systems enabled such a feat? And what knowledge was lost as the Nasca civilization declined, leaving only stones and channels to hint at its achievements? Walking among the spiraling vents today, one feels the quiet persistence of ingenuity buried beneath the desert sands. The wind shifts across the plains, filling the holes with sand and echoing the silence of centuries. Water still flows through some channels, proof that these ancient structures were built to endure. Yet the full purpose of the Cantalloc aqueducts, how the Nasca integrated them into daily life, agriculture, ritual, or cosmology, remains uncertain. Each step through the desert is a reminder that human history is layered, practical, symbolic, and sometimes deliberately enigmatic. The Nasca Cantalloc aqueducts, like the Mesha Stele, the lost golden tongues, or the Kofun tombs, reveal a recurring truth about history. Even the most brilliant creations can conceal as much as they reveal. They challenge us to consider not only what ancient peoples built, but why, and how much knowledge may have been lost to time, hidden beneath earth, stone, or silence. And so we are left with a question that lingers long after the desert wind has swept the sands smooth again. What full understanding might the Cantalloc aqueducts hold about the Nasca people, their ingenuity, their rituals, their worldview, and what other secrets might still lie beneath the earth, awaiting discovery by those patient and perceptive enough to listen to the echoes of an ancient civilization? As we leave behind the arid desert plains of southern Peru, where water carved its secrets beneath the earth in the Cantalloc aqueducts, our journey of historical mysteries takes us across the seas to medieval England, to a quiet village shrouded in fog and legend, WOOLPIT, in the county of Suffolk. Here, in the 12th century, an event occurred that would perplex chroniclers and scholars alike for centuries: the sudden appearance of two children with strange green-hued skin, speaking an unknown language and carrying tales of a world unfamiliar to those around them. The story begins in the fields near WOOLPIT, where villagers first encountered the boy and girl wandering alone. They were described as healthy but bewildered, their skin tinged green, a hue unlike any known human complexion. Their clothing was simple, unfamiliar, and perhaps ill-suited to the English countryside, suggesting a life removed from the village's rhythms. The children's eyes, wide with both fear and curiosity, held the reflection of a world that none of the villagers could comprehend. Chroniclers of the time, including William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall, recorded the events with a mix of fascination and skepticism. According to their accounts, the children spoke a language that no one could understand. It took weeks of patient observation, food, and gentle care before they began to learn English. And even then, they offered accounts of a land called St. Martin's Land, a subterranean realm illuminated by perpetual twilight, where the inhabitants were similarly green-skinned and strange by ordinary standards. The green coloration itself has intrigued scholars for generations. Some suggest a medical explanation: chlorosis, a form of anemia common in the Middle Ages, which could give the skin a pale or greenish tint. Others speculate that the color may have been symbolic, perhaps exaggerated in chroniclers' retellings to emphasize the children's otherness or divine significance. Yet even if the hue can be explained biologically, the mystery of their origins remains. Where did they come from, and why were they alone in the fields of WOOLPIT? The children's narrative of St. Martin's Land further deepens the enigma. They described a subterranean world, illuminated in ways unfamiliar to surface dwellers, with customs, plants, and beings distinct from the England they had suddenly entered. Some interpretations suggest that these stories were a form of fantasy or allegory, reflecting contemporary fears or moral lessons. Others entertain the possibility of literal truth. Could the children have originated from a remote or isolated community, perhaps hidden in a cave system, whose members rarely interacted with outsiders? Or is it conceivable, as some fringe theories propose, that they came from a lost or hidden civilization, subterranean or otherwise, glimpsed briefly before entering the known world. Historical context may offer partial explanations. The 12th century was a period of upheaval, famine, and displacement in England. Could the children have been wanderers, refugees, or victims of conflict, unfamiliar with the customs and language of WOOLPIT? And yet, the specificity of their tale, the mention of a distinct land, its own inhabitants, and unique customs, suggests more than mere confusion. How could children, likely no older than 10, invent such a detailed and consistent story without prior exposure to similar myths or literature? Even as we consider practical explanations, the narrative retains its strangeness. Some propose that the children were foreigners, perhaps from Scandinavia or Flanders, whose unusual appearance and speech marked them as outsiders. Others speculate that the green skin, the unfamiliar clothing, and the peculiar tale may have been exaggerated by the villagers themselves, shaped over time by retelling and imagination. Yet chroniclers emphasize the consistency of the story. Both children recounted similar experiences, learned English, and integrated into local life, yet their origins remained unexplained. Medical, psychological, and sociological theories abound. Some suggest malnutrition or illness caused both physical and cognitive differences, while others propose that the tale reflects early encounters with isolated communities or rare genetic traits. Even more speculative interpretations venture into the mythic. Could the children represent beings from folklore, fairy realms, or parallel worlds glimpsed briefly by human eyes? The narrative, while rooted in historical record, resists definitive interpretation, leaving ample space for curiosity, wonder, and reflection. The children of WOOLPIT, once integrated into village life, eventually adapted to the surface world, yet their story, preserved in monastic chronicles, continues to perplex. The boy, it is said, died young, but the girl survived and married, bringing a tangible presence of this extraordinary event into the future. Their existence straddles the boundary between historical fact and enduring mystery. A reminder that the past often delivers glimpses of the extraordinary, sometimes in forms that defy reason, expectation, or ordinary understanding. Walking through WOOLPIT today, the fields remain quiet, the hedgerows still, yet the story lingers in the air, a whisper of what might have been. The children's sudden appearance, the green of their skin, the language they spoke, and the land they described all invite reflection. Was this a literal encounter with unknown peoples, an allegorical tale preserved by chroniclers, or a phenomenon that escapes modern explanation? The enigma of the children from WOOLPIT reminds us that history is not merely a catalog of events. It is an archive of human experience, imagination, and anomaly. Some occurrences are straightforward, easily classified and understood. Others challenge the boundaries of reason, existing in the liminal space between the possible and the extraordinary. And so, as we leave the quiet fields and medieval chronicles behind, we are left with a question that endures centuries later. Who were the children of WOOLPIT? Where did they come from? And what truth, buried, hidden, or perhaps forever lost, remains in the green-tinged echoes of their story? What other anomalies, unnoticed or dismissed, might still be waiting in the shadows of history, ready to challenge our understanding of the world we think we know? As we leave the mist-shrouded Andes behind, where the Chachapoya built their cities among clouds and cliffs, our journey of historical enigmas moves across oceans to the vast, unpredictable expanse of the Atlantic. Here, in waters notorious for storms, shifting currents, and countless legends, one of the most perplexing maritime mysteries of the 20th century unfolded: the disappearance of the USS Cyclops. A massive naval vessel, fully crewed and laden with supplies, it vanished without a trace in March 1918, leaving behind questions that have confounded historians, sailors, and investigators for over a century. The Cyclops was a Proteus-class collier, a ship designed to transport coal to fuel the U.S. Navy's fleet. At over 500 feet in length and capable of carrying thousands of tons of cargo, it was a marvel of its time, sturdy and reliable, or so it seemed. Departing from Barbados bound for Baltimore, Maryland, it carried 10,800 tons of manganese ore and a complement of 309 crew members. What followed was an unbroken silence. No distress signals, no sightings, no wreckage recovered. The ship simply disappeared into the Atlantic, swallowed by the sea and by mystery. The location of the disappearance falls within a region that would later become associated with the Bermuda Triangle, a stretch of ocean between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, infamous for the unexplained vanishing of ships and aircraft. While some suggest the Cyclops was simply a victim of natural disaster, a violent storm, shifting cargo, or structural failure, the absence of debris and the lack of communication make any definitive conclusion difficult. How could a ship so large, on a well-traveled route, vanish entirely without leaving physical evidence? Several theories have emerged over the decades. Mechanical failure is a leading explanation. The Cyclops was heavily laden, and the manganese ore it carried may have shifted during transit, causing the ship to list and capsize. Overloaded or poorly balanced cargo has caused many maritime disasters, but even this plausible scenario leaves questions unanswered. The vessel's disappearance was total. No life rafts, flotsam, or bodies were ever conclusively identified. Could a simple mechanical mishap account for the complete vanishing of 309 people and a ship of such size? Other explanations look to natural phenomena. The Atlantic, especially in the Caribbean region, is prone to sudden storms, rogue waves, and shifting currents. Could a massive wave, combined with hidden structural weaknesses, have overwhelmed the Cyclops before anyone could react? While possible, the total lack of wreckage challenges even the most sophisticated oceanographic models. Theories invoking magnetic anomalies, whirlpools, or underwater currents have been proposed, but no scientific investigation has definitively confirmed that these factors could entirely erase a vessel of such magnitude from the ocean's surface. Speculative and fringe theories add another layer to the mystery. Some suggest sabotage or enemy action. During World War I, German U-boats prowled the Atlantic, and the Cyclops, carrying strategic minerals, might have been targeted. Yet no records or claims from German forces support this, and no debris consistent with a wartime attack was found. Others propose more extraordinary explanations, invoking the Bermuda Triangle as a zone of unexplained disappearances, where ships and aircraft might encounter unknown forces, natural or otherwise. While these theories cannot be verified, they reflect the enduring human need to explain events that defy ordinary comprehension. The disappearance of the Cyclops is particularly haunting because it is both immediate and absolute. Unlike other maritime tragedies where survivors or wreckage provide clues, the Cyclops left behind no trace. No messages, no floating cargo, no lifeboats, nothing to mark the site of its loss. It is as if the ship and everyone aboard were erased, leaving only records of departure, speculation, and the enduring ache of the unknown. In examining the Cyclops, we also confront questions about human perception of risk and mystery. The Atlantic is vast, unpredictable, and often unforgiving, yet ships of the era routinely traversed it without incident. Why, then, did this particular vessel meet such a silent fate? Was it a combination of unfortunate circumstances, overconfidence, and human error? Or does the total absence of evidence hint at something larger, something that we, even today, struggle to comprehend? The loss also illuminates the fragility of knowledge and the limits of modern investigation. Despite advances in sonar, satellite imaging, and deep-sea exploration, the final resting place of the Cyclops has never been found. Oceanographers, historians, and amateur investigators continue to search, each new expedition offering hope of answers but often revealing only further complexity. In this silence, the story becomes more than an historical incident. It becomes a meditation on uncertainty, absence, and the ways in which the natural world can outpace human understanding. The USS Cyclops, like the vanished civilizations, the enigmatic children, and the hidden tombs we have explored, reminds us that history is full of unanswered questions. Some events leave traces, artifacts, or survivors. Others vanish entirely, leaving behind only speculation, legend, and the occasional fragment of evidence. In contemplating the Cyclops, we are reminded of both the scale of human endeavor, the courage and skill required to navigate oceans, and the humility demanded by the vast, indifferent, and sometimes inexplicable forces of nature. And so, as we drift from the Atlantic into the vast expanse of history's unanswered mysteries, we are left with a lingering question. What truly happened to the USS Cyclops, and what secrets, if any, remain beneath the waves, waiting to be discovered, or perhaps destined never to be known? The story of this vanished ship continues to challenge our understanding, inviting both awe and reflection on the limits of human knowledge in the face of the unknown. As we leave behind the enigmatic figure of Caspar Hauser, whose identity and origins continue to haunt the annals of European history, our journey of historical mysteries carries us far across continents, to the mist-shrouded cloud forests of northern Peru. Here, perched high upon precipitous cliffs and hidden among the verdant folds of the Andes, lived a people known to history as the Chachapoya, the so-called Cloud People. Their world, both breathtaking and remote, remains a tapestry of wonder, resilience, and unresolved questions. The Chachapoya civilization flourished roughly between the 9th and 15th centuries, long before the full arrival of the Inca. Their settlements cling to sheer mountainsides, fortified cities like Cuelap rising like stone citadels amidst dense fog, inaccessible to the uninvited eye. It is impossible not to be struck by the audacity of their architecture. Massive stone walls, intricate circular dwellings, and ceremonial complexes constructed in locations that seem almost designed to repel intruders. How did a people so isolated achieve such feats of engineering? And why were their settlements placed in locations so deliberately difficult to reach? The Chachapoya's material culture deepens the mystery. They created finely woven textiles, elaborate ceramics, and mummies that were embalmed and placed in cliffside tombs, sometimes in rows, sometimes in hidden caves, with faces often painted or adorned. These funerary practices suggest a society deeply concerned with death, ancestry, and the afterlife. Yet much of their social structure, religion, and political organization remains elusive. When the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, they encountered fierce resistance, noting both the Chachapoya's courage and the strangeness of their customs. Yet, within a generation, disease, conquest, and assimilation had largely erased the culture, leaving only fragments of what had once been a thriving civilization. Cuelap, the largest surviving Chachapoya fortress, exemplifies the sophistication and mystery of this people. Massive limestone walls rise nearly 20 meters high, enclosing hundreds of round stone structures. The alignment of the buildings, the precision of the masonry, and the sheer scale of the fortress suggest not only technical skill, but also social organization and planning. Some scholars propose defensive purposes, protecting the inhabitants from invaders. Others point to ceremonial or symbolic functions, arguing that Cuelap was as much a spiritual center as a military one. Could the fortress have served multiple roles simultaneously, blending the practical with the sacred in ways we cannot fully comprehend? The Chachapoya's funerary sites provide additional layers of intrigue. Coffins and sarcophagi are often placed in cliffside niches, sometimes hundreds of meters above ground. Some mummies were positioned in a fetal pose, facing outward, as if perpetually watching the valleys below. Did these arrangements serve a practical purpose, such as protection from scavengers? Or were they deeply symbolic, reflecting beliefs about death, the afterlife, and the connection between the living and the dead? And why are so many of their tombs still undiscovered, hidden in caves, inaccessible cliffs, or dense jungle, leaving mysteries yet unspoken? The very name, Cloud People, evokes both awe and ambiguity. Were the Chachapoya called this for their lofty, mist-enshrouded homes? Or was it a reference to their enigmatic culture, elusive and hard to interpret from the perspective of neighboring societies? Historical records from the Inca and later chroniclers offer tantalizing glimpses. They describe a people of pale skin and light hair, remarkable warriors, and skilled builders. Yet much of this information is filtered through outsiders' perspectives, leaving the Chachapoya largely defined by what was seen by others rather than what they left in writing. Speculative theories flourish in the shadows of these historical gaps. Some researchers suggest that the Chachapoya possessed astronomical knowledge encoded in the alignment of their settlements, or that certain sites had ritualistic functions connected to celestial cycles. Others propose connections between the Chachapoya and more ancient cultures of the Andes, hinting at long-standing trade networks or knowledge exchanges. Fringe interpretations even suggest that some mummies and tombs might reveal previously unknown medical or technological practices, preserved in isolation until the modern eye discovered them centuries later. Archaeological study continues to reveal surprising details. DNA analysis of mummified remains confirms a population with unique genetic markers, suggesting relative isolation but also occasional contact with surrounding groups. Excavations uncover ceramics, textiles, and carvings whose patterns and motifs challenge easy classification, hinting at a culture that blended practicality, artistry, and symbolic meaning. And yet, despite these discoveries, vast regions of Chachapoya territory remain unexplored, concealed by mountains, jungle, and fog, preserving secrets that may never be fully revealed. Walking along the narrow ridges and fog-laden valleys where the Chachapoya once thrived, one cannot help but feel a sense of awe and lingering mystery. The people who built stone cities perched impossibly on cliffs, mummified their dead with care, and resisted formidable invaders were both ordinary and extraordinary. Their ingenuity and resilience invite admiration. Yet the reasons behind many of their choices, the location of fortresses, the design of tombs, the symbolism in artifacts, remain tantalizingly out of reach. The story of the Chachapoya reminds us that history is not always preserved in texts or conventional chronicles. Sometimes it lies in stone, earth, and fog, in practices and structures that demand interpretation and imagination. Their vanished culture, partially reconstructed through archaeology and folklore, evokes the enduring power of human ingenuity, as well as the fragility of civilizations faced with forces beyond their control. And so, as we leave the cloud forests behind and reflect on the forgotten people of the Andes, we are confronted with a question that persists through centuries. What secrets, knowledge, and stories of the Chachapoya remain hidden in the cliffs, caves, and mists of their homeland? How much of their culture has been irrevocably lost, and what might we still uncover if we venture carefully into the shadows they left behind? The Cloud People's legacy, much like the other mysteries we have explored, reminds us that history is never fully complete, and that the past often whispers more than it reveals. As we leave the frozen Arctic behind, where the Franklin expedition vanished into ice and silence, our journey of historical enigmas carries us across the Mediterranean to a region steeped in myth, history, and whispers of catastrophe, the Gulf of Corinth in ancient Greece. Beneath the waves and shifting sands, lies the story of Helike, a city that thrived for centuries before being swallowed almost entirely by the sea in a sudden dramatic event. Its memory preserved in legends, fragmented records, and archaeological traces that continue to intrigue scholars and explorers alike. Helike was no ordinary city. By the 5th century BCE, it had grown into a prosperous and culturally vibrant settlement, known for its wealth, temples, and devotion to Poseidon. Ancient historians describe its streets lined with elegant buildings, bustling marketplaces, and sanctuaries adorned with votive offerings. Positioned near the Gulf's northern shore, Helike commanded both strategic and economic importance, its citizens deeply integrated into the trade networks and political spheres of ancient Greece. And yet, despite its prominence, Helike would vanish almost entirely, leaving only questions in its wake. The destruction of Helike occurred in 373 BCE, according to historical accounts, with astonishing suddenness. Pliny the Elder and later writers recount an earthquake that shook the region, followed by a tsunami that engulfed the city, swallowing it beneath water and mud. Eyewitnesses describe the sea rising like a pillar and entire neighborhoods disappearing in an instant, as if the city had been erased from the earth. How could an entire urban center vanish so completely, leaving so little behind, and yet imprint itself so vividly on human memory? Archaeological exploration has uncovered tantalizing fragments of the city beneath the Gulf, submerged in layers of sediment and silt. Excavations reveal walls, foundations, and artifacts remarkably preserved in the anaerobic environment, hinting at the city's architectural sophistication and social complexity. Temples, public spaces, and homes suggest a thriving community deeply connected to religious practice, commerce, and civic life. And yet, the scope of what remains is tantalizingly incomplete, leaving scholars to piece together a civilization from fragments, each new discovery prompting fresh questions about daily life, governance, and the circumstances of Helike's destruction. Seismic activity in the region provides a plausible explanation for Helike's fate. The Corinthian Gulf sits along an active fault line, prone to earthquakes that can trigger both tremors and subsequent tsunamis. Geological surveys suggest that the combination of tectonic activity, liquefaction of the soft ground, and the sudden influx of water from the Gulf may have caused the rapid submergence of the city. Yet the speed and scale of Helike's disappearance remain remarkable. Could a single seismic event have obliterated an entire city in minutes? Or were there additional environmental or human factors that contributed to the catastrophe? Historical accounts add layers of intrigue. Ancient sources describe Helike as a city cursed by the gods, punished for sacrilege or hubris. Some suggest that the destruction became a moral allegory, framed in the language of divine wrath rather than purely natural phenomena. Others point to recurring patterns in mythology, linking Helike to tales of Atlantis or other lost civilizations, emphasizing the human fascination with vanished cities and the blending of fact with legend. How much of Helike's story is rooted in real events, and how much has been transformed into cautionary myth? The submerged ruins themselves evoke a sense of haunting beauty. Artifacts recovered from the seabed, pottery, coins, religious figurines, offer glimpses into ordinary life, even as their context is obscured by centuries underwater. The preservation of organic materials in certain pockets allows modern researchers to study the diet, trade practices, and craftsmanship of Helike's inhabitants, yet vast areas remain unexplored, buried under layers of mud, sand, and sediment. Each fragment hints at human presence and culture, yet simultaneously emphasizes the scale of what has been lost to time and tide. Speculative theories surrounding Helike extend beyond natural disaster. Some suggest that sudden subsidence or shifts in the Gulf's seabed could have accelerated the city's collapse, effectively sinking neighborhoods intact. Others propose that ritual or societal practices may have influenced the settlement patterns, making Helike particularly vulnerable to seismic events. Fringe interpretations, drawing on parallels with Atlantis and other submerged cities, imagine broader, forgotten civilizations along the Mediterranean's coasts, though these remain unproven and largely symbolic. Yet even speculative thought underscores the allure of Helike as both a real historical site and a vessel of human imagination. The story of Helike reminds us of the impermanence of human endeavor. A city once thriving with commerce, culture, and devotion could be erased almost entirely within a single catastrophic moment, leaving only faint traces beneath the waves. Its disappearance challenges our sense of permanence, forcing reflection on how human societies interact with the natural world and how memory, legend, and archaeology intertwine to preserve the echoes of what has been lost. Walking along the Gulf of Corinth today, it is possible to imagine the streets, temples, and bustling life of Helike, now hidden beneath meters of water and mud. Each recovered artifact, each wall fragment, whispers of a world abruptly interrupted, urging contemplation of the fragility of civilization and the forces beyond human control. How much of Helike remains buried, waiting to be discovered? What details of daily life, governance, and culture have vanished forever beneath the shifting gulf? The tale of Helike, like the vanished ships, lost cities, and forgotten peoples we have explored, illustrates that history is never fully complete. Its mysteries invite inquiry, reflection, and imagination, compelling us to consider what might still lie hidden beneath the surface, both literal and metaphorical, of our recorded past. As we leave the misty fields of WOOLPIT behind, where green-skinned children once emerged from legend and whispered of hidden worlds, our journey of historical enigmas turns to 19th century Europe, to a mystery that captivated a continent and continues to baffle historians. The case of Caspar Hauser, the enigmatic youth whose sudden appearance and uncertain origins would ignite questions about identity, lineage, and the fragile boundaries of human memory. It was in the spring of 1828, on a cobbled street in Nuremberg, that Caspar Hauser was first seen, a teenager, barefoot, clutching a letter, his clothes worn and unfamiliar, his eyes wide with confusion. He spoke little, and what he did speak suggested an upbringing isolated from ordinary society. He claimed to have spent nearly his entire life confined in a dark cell, with only minimal contact with the outside world, learning speech and human customs only gradually. The very appearance of this boy, thin, pale, and timid, immediately drew attention, as if he were a living puzzle dropped into the heart of a bustling city. Contemporaneous accounts describe Caspar as polite, earnest, and unnervingly sincere, yet his origins were entirely unknown. He carried with him only a few personal effects: a letter from an unknown guardian, a small purse, and a cryptic note implying that he had been deliberately isolated for unknown reasons. Some believed him to be of noble birth, perhaps even connected to the Grand Duchy of Baden, while others suspected he was merely a wanderer, the product of misfortune and deceit. Yet nothing in his appearance or speech conclusively confirmed any theory, leaving his identity shrouded in uncertainty. Caspar's unusual upbringing is itself a source of fascination. If his claims of long-term isolation are true, they suggest an extraordinary deprivation of social, linguistic, and cultural experience. How could a human being survive years in near total confinement and yet retain curiosity, intelligence, and the capacity for learning? And if his story were false, how did he cultivate such convincing innocence and vulnerability? Each possibility presents its own mysteries, challenging assumptions about human development and the malleability of identity. Historians have long debated Caspar's origins. Some suggest he was an illegitimate or hidden member of European nobility, perhaps a child whose existence threatened political succession, concealed to protect family interests. Others argue he was an imposter or a socially marginalized youth, raised in isolation but not of noble lineage. Even in modern times, DNA testing has offered tantalizing hints but no definitive proof, leaving the question open. Was Caspar Hauser truly a lost prince, or merely a remarkable, enigmatic individual whose story was amplified by society's fascination with the extraordinary? Caspar's behavior and abilities added layers of complexity. He demonstrated rapid learning in language and mathematics, a capacity for observation and memory that suggested both innate intelligence and adaptation to his circumstances. Yet he also exhibited peculiar habits: an aversion to sunlight, extreme caution in daily tasks, and moments of inexplicable fear. Were these remnants of trauma, social conditioning, or something more profound, hinting at secrets buried in his earliest years? Each recorded anecdote paints a portrait of a young man simultaneously ordinary and extraordinary, grounded in reality yet tinged with the mysterious. The circumstances of Caspar's death deepen the intrigue. In 1833, he suffered a fatal wound from a stab under unclear circumstances, leaving historians divided over whether it was murder, suicide, or accident. Some witnesses reported seeing suspicious figures nearby, while others speculated that Caspar himself may have caused the injury in a moment of confusion or distress. The ambiguity of his final days mirrors the uncertainty of his life, every detail tantalizing, every explanation incomplete, and every theory subject to debate. Speculative theories abound, fueled by gaps in the historical record. Could Caspar Hauser have been part of a clandestine political plot, hidden from birth to preserve dynastic claims? Did he possess knowledge, however limited, that implicated powerful families or revealed inconvenient truths about succession? Or was he a solitary figure, remarkable only for the isolation and deprivation he endured, whose story became magnified by society's appetite for mystery and the extraordinary? Each theory, grounded or speculative, highlights the persistent allure of the unknown. Caspar's story also raises broader questions about human identity and memory. How much of ourselves is shaped by environment, culture, and experience? If a child can survive years of isolation and emerge into society with the capacity to learn, adapt, and communicate, what does that reveal about resilience and human potential? And conversely, if Caspar's tale were fabricated or exaggerated, what does the fascination it provoked reveal about society's desire to encounter the inexplicable and to impose narrative order on uncertainty? Walking the streets of Nuremberg today, one can almost imagine Caspar's small, hesitant footsteps, the gaze of a boy simultaneously lost and searching. His story lingers, not only as a historical curiosity, but as a reflection of the mysteries of human existence, of memory, upbringing, and the boundaries of identity. Every recorded detail, every surviving document, is both evidence and enigma, inviting us to consider the extraordinary possibilities hidden within the ordinary world. The mystery of Caspar Hauser reminds us that history is rarely neat or complete. For every record, there are absences. For every certainty, ambiguities. Some truths are preserved, while others vanish, leaving us to question what really happened and what may forever remain unknowable. And so, as we leave Caspar Hauser behind, a figure at once real and elusive, we are left with questions that echo across time. Who was he truly? What forces shaped his existence? And what secrets of lineage, human resilience, or hidden histories might still lie waiting to be discovered in the shadows of Europe's past? Perhaps the answers, like so many mysteries we have explored, remain just beyond our reach, inviting reflection, curiosity, and wonder. As we leave the sunken streets and silent temples of Helike behind, where the sea has claimed a once thriving city, our exploration of history's unsolved mysteries moves northward, into the misted hills and dense forests of ancient Britain. Here, along the frontier of the Roman Empire, one of antiquity's most perplexing military enigmas unfolded. The disappearance of the Ninth Legion, or Legio IX Hispana, a disciplined, battle-hardened unit of Rome's formidable army. It vanished from historical records sometime after the early 2nd century CE, leaving behind questions that continue to challenge scholars and ignite the imagination. The Ninth Legion had earned its reputation on the battlefields of Hispania and Germania, serving Rome with distinction. By the early 100s CE, the Legion was stationed in Britannia, part of Rome's northernmost defensive line. Archaeological evidence places them at several forts along Hadrian's Wall and other northern outposts, yet after a certain point in the historical record, the Legion seemingly disappears. There is no detailed account of its defeat, no official record of its reassignment, and no definitive clue to its ultimate fate. How could an entire Roman legion, a symbol of imperial power and organization, vanish without trace? Roman historians, such as Tacitus and later chroniclers, offer tantalizing but incomplete hints. Some suggest the legion was destroyed in battle, perhaps during a rebellion of native tribes in northern Britain. The territory was rugged, with forests, marshes, and mountains offering natural concealment for insurgent forces, a setting that could have challenged even Rome's most disciplined troops. Yet no archaeological evidence of a catastrophic battle has been conclusively identified. Could the legion have been ambushed and wiped out so completely that no material traces survived? Or did the story take a different turn altogether? Mainstream historical theories propose several possibilities. One posits that the Ninth Legion was redeployed to the eastern provinces of the empire, where it was gradually dissolved, merged with other units, or reconstituted under a different name. Another suggests annihilation in combat during the northern campaigns, leaving minimal evidence in the archaeological record. Both scenarios are plausible, yet the absence of decisive documentation leaves a lingering sense of unease. How could Rome, a civilization meticulous in record-keeping and administration, fail to record the fate of an entire legion? The enigma deepens when we consider the Roman approach to military honor and history. A legion destroyed in battle was a scandal to be obscured, a blemish on Rome's image of invincibility. Could the disappearance of the Ninth have been deliberately downplayed or erased from official accounts to maintain the illusion of control? If so, what might this suggest about the Roman Empire's ability to manipulate history and perception, even as real events unfolded in the wilds of Britain? Speculative theories offer further intrigue. Some writers have imagined that the legion might have been trapped in hostile territory, cut off from reinforcements, and forced to surrender or assimilate with local populations. Could remnants of Rome's finest have integrated into the tribal communities of northern Britain, leaving subtle cultural or genetic traces that lingered for centuries? Others propose that disease, harsh climate, or logistical collapse may have led to gradual attrition rather than a dramatic battle, quietly erasing the legion from the map. Each theory underscores the uncertainty and complexity surrounding the fate of the Ninth. Archaeology provides glimpses, yet rarely answers. Excavations at Roman forts in northern Britain reveal artifacts consistent with Ninth Legion occupation, from weaponry to building inscriptions. Beyond that, however, there is a silence in the soil. No mass graves, no signs of pitched battle commensurate with the annihilation of a full legion. Even the famous inscriptions in York, once thought to mark the legion's final presence, leave open the question of whether the Ninth moved, dissolved, or was destroyed elsewhere. Every discovery adds depth to the story, but rarely resolves it. The legend of the Ninth Legion has also influenced literature, folklore, and historical imagination. Tales of a lost Roman army wandering the wilds of Britain, fighting to survive against insurmountable odds, capture both the human fascination with disappearance and the symbolic power of Rome itself. Historians, Novelists and filmmakers have speculated about heroism, betrayal, and tragedy, blending the sparse facts with the enduring allure of the unknown. How much of this narrative reflects reality, and how much is shaped by the compelling human need for story where facts are absent? The mystery of the Ninth Legion speaks to broader questions about memory, documentation, and historical continuity. Rome prided itself on bureaucracy, engineering, and military discipline, yet even such an empire could produce events that vanish almost entirely from recorded history. The fate of the Ninth reminds us that even in civilizations obsessed with permanence, the full record of human experience is never guaranteed. And when an entire legion disappears, leaving only fragments, inscriptions, and the echoes of speculation, the mind naturally wonders, what really happened, and why does it remain obscured? As we traverse the hills and valleys of northern Britain in imagination, picturing the forts, the soldiers, and the dense forests, we sense both awe and mystery. The Ninth Legion, disciplined, trained, and loyal, vanished into history in a way that continues to fascinate and frustrate. Were they destroyed in combat, lost to disease, or absorbed quietly into other formations? And what does their disappearance reveal about the limits of knowledge, record-keeping, and our understanding of the past? The story of the Ninth Roman Legion, like Helike, the Franklin expedition, and the other vanished peoples and civilizations we have explored, reminds us that history is never complete. It is a mosaic of presence and absence, of recorded facts and enduring enigmas. And in pondering the fate of this legendary legion, we are left with a question that has echoed for nearly 2 millennia. What truly happened to the Ninth, and what secrets of human endeavor, conflict, and survival remain hidden in the mists of time? As we leave the misted hills of northern Britain, where the Ninth Roman Legion vanished into history, our journey of historical mysteries carries us across continents, to the highlands of Peru, where the Andes rise in jagged splendor, cloaked in clouds and sunlight. Nestled near the town of Sayhuite, in the region once traversed by the Incas, lies a peculiar and enigmatic artifact, a massive carved stone, unlike any other in the archaeological record, known simply as the Sayhuite stone. Its purpose remains a puzzle, a silent testament to human ingenuity and the mysteries of an ancient civilization. The Sayhuite stone is a monolithic block, approximately 12 meters long, 7 meters wide, and several meters high, carved from local granite. Its surface is etched with an intricate network of channels, depressions, basins, and tunnels, forming a miniature landscape that appears to mimic rivers, lakes, and irrigation systems. At first glance, it resembles a topographical map or a model of water flow, but closer examination reveals an astonishing level of precision. Every groove, every basin, and every channel seems intentional, yet no consensus exists on its exact function. Why would the Incas, or a culture preceding them, carve such an elaborate representation of water in stone? The stone's origin remains obscure. Local legend attributes it to the Incas, renowned for their engineering prowess, particularly in agriculture and water management. The region surrounding Sayhuite is crisscrossed with terraced fields, canals, and reservoirs, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of hydrology. Could the Sayhuite stone have served as a tool for planning these systems, a teaching device for engineers, or a ceremonial object representing the life-giving force of water? The scale and detail suggest deliberate purpose, yet without written records or corroborating documentation, the answers are elusive. Scholars and researchers have long speculated about its use. Some argue that the stone functioned as a hydraulic model, allowing water to be poured into the channels to simulate irrigation patterns. Experiments have demonstrated that water introduced at the top flows naturally through the channels and basins, echoing the movement of rivers and streams across a landscape. This observation supports the theory that the Sayhuite stone may have been a practical tool for engineers or farmers, Yet if this is true, why was it carved into such a permanent and monumental stone, rather than a temporary portable model? Could there have been symbolic or ceremonial purposes intertwined with its practical function? The form of the stone itself deepens the mystery. Unlike conventional maps or diagrams, the Sehuite stone is abstract yet precise. Channels twist and turn, basins vary in depth, and some depressions appear to represent features not found in the surrounding terrain. Are these depictions of distant regions, a memory of vanished waterways, or entirely symbolic constructs representing cosmological or religious ideas? Some researchers suggest that the stone may have served as a ritualistic offering, a tangible representation of the Incas' reverence for water as a sacred, life-giving force. Yet the possibility of a purely symbolic explanation does not fully account for the stone's meticulous engineering. Further intrigue arises from comparisons with other Inca and pre-Inca hydraulic works. Across the Andes, the Incas engineered terraced fields, aqueducts, and canals with remarkable accuracy, often spanning vast elevations and distances. Could the Sehuite stone represent a prototype, a teaching aid, or a model used to convey complex engineering concepts to apprentices or officials? Alternatively, some fringe theories speculate on astronomical or cosmological functions, suggesting the channels align with celestial events or seasonal rainfall cycles. While compelling, these interpretations remain speculative, unverified by direct evidence, yet they underscore the enigmatic nature of the artifact. The stone's preservation is remarkable. Despite centuries of exposure to wind, rain, and seismic activity, the carvings retain sharp edges and clear patterns. This durability raises further questions. Was the stone intentionally selected and prepared for longevity? And if so, what does this suggest about the significance of its purpose? Who oversaw its creation, and what knowledge or skill was required to carve such a precise and detailed representation in granite? The labor, expertise, and time invested in the Sehuite stone suggest a level of importance that transcends simple utility. Visiting the site today, one is struck by the sense of intimacy and scale. Pouring water into the channels, whether experimentally or ceremonially, reveals a miniature hydrological network that is both functional and mesmerizing. Observers can trace the path of water through basins, canals, and conduits, imagining the meticulous planning and observation required to translate natural flows into stone. And yet, as the water disappears over the edges, so too does certainty, leaving behind only questions about the intentions and knowledge of those who created it. The Sehuite stone, like the vanished legion, the sunken city of Helike, and the lost sailors of the Franklin expedition, reminds us that human history is full of enigmas that challenge comprehension. It is a convergence of artistry, engineering, and mystery, evoking curiosity about a civilization that understood both the practical and symbolic power of water. What truths were encoded in the channels and basins? Were they tools, teaching devices, sacred symbols, or a combination of all three? As we step away from the carved granite and the winding channels that continue to puzzle and inspire, we are left with a sense of wonder and humility. The Sehuite stone invites reflection on the ingenuity of the ancient world and the limits of modern understanding. In the absence of definitive answers, the stone becomes a silent interlocutor, speaking to our imagination as much as to our intellect, urging us to consider what knowledge may have been lost to time and what still awaits discovery beneath the clouds of the Andean highlands. From the meticulously carved channels of the Sehuite stone, we move across the Peruvian highlands, descending toward the arid plains of the Nasca Desert, where the earth itself has been transformed into a canvas of enigmatic symbols. Here, etched across the sands in lines so precise that they remain visible from the sky, lies one of the most perplexing legacies of pre-Columbian South America, the Nasca geoglyphs. Among them, one figure stands apart, a humanoid form often called the astronaut. Its appearance, scale, and ambiguity continue to confound archaeologists, historians, and travelers alike, leaving us to ponder the intentions and knowledge of its creators. The Nasca astronaut stretches nearly 7 meters across the desert floor, carved into the dry soil with simple, deep lines that have survived for over a millennium. Unlike natural rock formations or random scratches, the figure is deliberate in design. Its oversized head, circular eyes, and outstretched limbs suggest a humanoid, yet its abstract proportions and ambiguous features give it an otherworldly quality. From the vantage of the ground, the geoglyph can seem abstract or unremarkable, but from the air, its full form emerges with startling clarity, a reminder of the vision and intent of those who created it. Constructed between 500 BCE and 500 CE by the Nasca culture, the geoglyphs are etched with remarkable precision. Scholars estimate that the lines were made by removing reddish-brown iron oxide-coated pebbles to reveal lighter-colored earth beneath, creating durable contrasts that the desert's dryness preserved for centuries. Yet the question remains: why create such enormous figures that are largely illegible from the surface? Were these geoglyphs intended for the gods above, ceremonial pathways, astronomical markers, or perhaps practical purposes now lost to time? The astronaut, in particular, has inspired a wide range of interpretations. Some researchers suggest it represents a shamanic figure or a deity, perhaps embodying a ritual participant in ceremonial practices. Others see it as a symbolic depiction of the Nazca's cosmology, encoded in a form recognizable from high vantage points or spiritual visions. Its large head and simplified body proportions may be stylistic rather than literal, reflecting cultural norms of representation rather than an actual humanoid form. And yet, the very ambiguity of the figure invites speculation and wonder. Mainstream explanations focus on ritual and astronomical purposes. The Nasca lines often align with solstices, celestial events, or water sources, hinting at a society deeply attuned to the environment and its cycles. Could the astronaut be a guardian figure, invoking protection, guidance, or fertility? Or perhaps it was part of a network of figures that communicated seasonal, agricultural, or religious information across vast distances. The precision required to construct such a figure without aerial perspective suggests extraordinary planning, observation, and coordination. Speculative theories, while not grounded in direct evidence, add further layers to the mystery. The figure's humanoid appearance has led some to propose extraterrestrial interpretations, imagining the Nasca as recipients of celestial visitors or observers of beings from other worlds. Others see the astronaut as a representation of shamanic trance experiences, a vision perceived from spiritual journeys rather than the literal world. While these ideas are debated and often sensationalized, they underscore the human fascination with imagery that straddles the boundary between the known and the unknowable. The geoglyph's preservation is itself a marvel. The Nasca Desert's extreme aridity and lack of wind allow the lines to endure for centuries, yet slight disturbances or erosion can alter their appearance. Modern aerial photography, satellite imaging, and digital mapping have revealed the full complexity of the figure, showing details imperceptible from the ground. Archaeologists study these images to understand the construction techniques, alignments, and interconnections among figures. Still, the meaning, the why, remains elusive. Visiting the site today, one feels a sense of humility before both the scale and the subtlety of the geoglyph. The astronaut lies silent across the sands, a figure whose intent and identity are frozen in time, yet which seems to communicate across centuries. Was it created to be seen by the gods, the community, or a future civilization looking back from the sky? And why choose such abstract, otherworldly forms when simpler depictions might have sufficed? Each question evokes further reflection on the ingenuity, symbolism, and worldview of the Nasca people. The Nasca astronaut also highlights the interplay between mystery and observation. From the ground, one may miss its proportions, its design, its subtle alignment. From above, the figure reveals itself, suggesting that perspective, and perhaps knowledge lost to time, is key to understanding. What did the Nasca see? And what did they intend us to see? The geoglyph is both a puzzle and a message, a work of art and a testament to human imagination, challenging us to decipher cultural meaning from form, scale, and context. The astronaut, like the Sehuit stone and the vanished civilizations we have explored, reminds us that history often preserves enigmas alongside facts. Its lines endure, yet its meaning remains unresolved. It invites us to ponder questions about ritual, cosmology, creativity, and perception, reminding us that some messages of the past are deliberately, or perhaps inevitably, beyond full comprehension. As we leave the Nasca desert, walking over the sands where human hands once etched enormous figures, we are left with a lingering sense of awe. The astronaut challenges us to consider how ancient peoples understood their world, the cosmos, and their place within it. What knowledge, beliefs, or experiences were encoded in this humanoid form? And what secrets, still hidden, await those willing to observe, question, and imagine the world as the Nasca once did? From the vast desert lines of Nasca, where human hands etched enigmatic figures into the earth, we travel across continents and millennia to the banks of the Nile, where the monuments of ancient Egypt rise in solemn grandeur. Standing tall and silent in the morning light are the Colossi of Memnon, two massive stone statues that have gazed over the Theban plain for more than 3,000 years. Yet beyond their imposing presence, these statues once held a secret that intrigued travelers and locals alike. At dawn, one of them was said to emit a haunting sound, a musical or vocal phenomenon that echoed across the desert, a mystery that has puzzled observers since antiquity. The Colossi, each more than 18 meters high and carved from single blocks of quartzite, depict Pharaoh Amenhotep III seated in a meditative posture, hands resting on knees, gazing eastward toward the rising sun. From a distance, they appear unyielding, silent guardians of the past. Yet as Greek and Roman visitors to Egypt began to record, the northern statue, later associated with Memnon, a hero of the Trojan War, would sing at daybreak. Descriptions vary. Some reported a gentle whistle, others a musical note or even a human-like voice. These sounds were fleeting, delicate, and highly unpredictable, vanishing as mysteriously as they appeared. The earliest accounts, documented by travelers such as Strabo and Pausanias, describe crowds gathering at the statue to hear the phenomenon. Pilgrims and tourists from across the Roman world climbed the base, hoping to witness or interpret the sound. Some attributed it to divine presence, a sign of Memnon greeting his mother Eos, the goddess of dawn. Others suggested prophetic or protective qualities, while skeptics speculated on wind or other natural causes. For centuries, the singing of Memnon captured both scientific curiosity and human imagination. Modern investigation has offered several plausible explanations. Geologists and archaeologists suggest that the sounds were likely caused by the heating of the stone at sunrise, combined with small fissures in the quartzite. As the stone expanded in the early morning warmth, trapped moisture or air may have produced the characteristic vibrations, amplified by the statue's massive structure. Yet, while this explanation accounts for the acoustic phenomenon, it does not fully convey the emotional impact described by ancient observers. How could such natural processes inspire tales of voices, omens, and divine communication, spanning centuries and cultures? The mystery deepens when considering the statue's long history. The colossi have endured earthquakes, floods, and centuries of erosion. After the Roman era, the acoustic phenomenon largely ceased, possibly due to structural changes and damage sustained in antiquity. Yet the fascination persisted. Artists, poets, and travelers recorded the tales, and the mythic quality of the singing statue became intertwined with the identity of Memnon himself, a blend of history, legend, and human interpretation. What makes the phenomenon enduring is not merely the sound itself, but the profound resonance it held for observers who saw in it a bridge between the mortal and the divine. The colossi's physical and cultural context adds further layers to the mystery. Positioned along the west bank of the Nile, near Amenhotep III's mortuary temple, the statues were part of a larger complex designed to honor the pharaoh and his eternal presence. The acoustic property, whether intentional or coincidental, created an additional dimension of interaction between humans and monument. Could the architects have been aware of the potential for acoustic effects, intentionally selecting materials or placements to create an ethereal sound? Or was it a fortuitous accident, magnified by human perception, ritual, and imagination? Speculative interpretations have also emerged over time. Some suggest that the singing may have served ceremonial purposes, a signal marking the pharaoh's continuing presence, or a mystical accompaniment to sunrise rituals. Others entertain more fringe ideas, imagining ancient knowledge of acoustics and resonance beyond what is currently documented, or even invoking celestial or spiritual forces. While these interpretations remain unverified, they highlight the human fascination with phenomena that straddle the line between science and wonder. Visiting the colossi today, one is struck by their sheer scale and permanence, yet also by their silent testimony to centuries of observation and myth-making. Modern sound measurements confirm that minor vibrations can still occur under certain conditions, but the experience is no longer the dramatic event described by ancient writers. Even so, standing before the statues, the imagination cannot help but recall the crowds of antiquity, the anticipation at sunrise, the ethereal sounds that sparked awe, reverence, and mystery. The colossi remind us that even the most massive and enduring monuments can hold ephemeral secrets, moments that elude explanation yet persist in collective memory. The singing colossus, like the Nasca astronaut, the Sehuit stone, and vanished civilizations we have explored, demonstrates the delicate intersection of human perception, natural phenomena, and the storytelling impulse. It is a reminder that mysteries are often as much about human experience as they are about empirical fact. The echoes of Memnon's voice invite reflection on the ways we interpret the world around us, the desire to find meaning in sound, structure, and presence, and the enduring allure of the unexplained. As we leave the Theban plain behind, watching the sun rise over the desert sands, we are left with questions that remain unanswered. What precisely caused the colossi to sing? Was it nature, ritual, chance, or some combination of all three? And perhaps most intriguingly, what other secrets of perception, sound, and monument are encoded in the artifacts of the past, waiting patiently for future generations to discover or to merely imagine? As we leave the echoing voices of the colossi behind, traveling westward from the fertile banks of the Nile, our journey of historical mysteries takes us to the sun-scorched plains and river valleys of southern Iberia. Here, along the banks of the Guadalquivir River, lay the domain of a civilization both ancient and elusive. Tartessos, known to the Greeks and Romans as a wealthy, powerful society of the western Mediterranean, Tartessos has fascinated scholars and explorers for centuries. Yet, despite mentions in classical texts, its cities, culture, and even its precise location remain shrouded in uncertainty, leaving us to wonder what truly became of this forgotten civilization. Tartessos is often described as a land of wealth and abundance. Greek historians spoke of gold, silver, and rich minerals, of thriving trade networks reaching across the Mediterranean, and of a society sophisticated in metallurgy, agriculture, and navigation. Archaeological hints, ornate jewelry, bronze artifacts, and traces of urban settlements paint a picture of a flourishing culture, yet much remains buried beneath layers of time, silt, and speculation. How could a civilization so prominent in ancient texts vanish so thoroughly, leaving only tantalizing fragments of its existence? The geographical setting of Tartessos adds to the mystery. Situated near the mouth of the Guadalquivir, its fertile plains, rivers, and marshlands would have supported vibrant settlements, agriculture, and commerce. Greek and Roman accounts describe cities with fortified walls, bustling harbors, and monumental structures. Yet no definitive urban center has been conclusively identified, and much of the archaeological evidence has been eroded, submerged, or obscured over centuries. Could Tartessos have been swallowed by the shifting course of the river, lost to rising waters, or simply dismantled and absorbed by neighboring cultures? Classical texts provide glimpses, but few certainties. Strabo and Herodotus mention kings of Tartessos, detailing their riches and connections with Phoenician traders. Legends speak of a city so grand that its streets were lined with gold, and of a language and script now lost to history. Tartessos was clearly known to the wider Mediterranean world, yet it seems to have disappeared suddenly from historical record by the 6th century BCE. Was this decline gradual, brought on by environmental change, economic collapse, or invasion? Or was it more abrupt, a catastrophe or series of events that erased the civilization before its story could be fully told? Archaeologists and historians have proposed several theories. Some argue that Tartessos was a Bronze Age society that merged into later Iberian cultures, its identity gradually dissolving into successive waves of settlement. Others suggest it may have been partially mythical, exaggerated by Greek writers who conflated trade wealth with urban splendor. Excavations in the region have uncovered metalwork, pottery, and remnants of dwellings consistent with a sophisticated society, yet the scale and organization of Tartessos remains speculative. Each find tantalizes, offering evidence of a civilization that was remarkable yet frustratingly incomplete. The mystery deepens when we consider Tartessos's trade networks. Classical sources indicate extensive connections with Phoenicia, Carthage, and even the broader Mediterranean, suggesting a cosmopolitan culture with far-reaching influence. Could Tartessos have been a hub of commerce, science, and art, its achievements overshadowed and absorbed by the rising powers around it? And if so, why has so little physical evidence survived to corroborate these accounts? Was the civilization deliberately dismantled? Or did time simply erode the traces of a society once brilliant? Speculative theories add further intrigue. Some researchers propose that Tartessos may have been a center of esoteric knowledge, with sacred sites, ritual practices, and coded messages preserved in metalwork or urban planning, echoes of which could have influenced later Iberian or Mediterranean cultures. Others imagine that Tartessos's disappearance was accelerated by natural disasters, flooding, earthquakes, or climatic shifts that transformed the fertile plains into uninhabitable wetlands. While direct evidence is limited, the interplay of myth, geology, and archaeology creates a rich field for contemplation. One particularly haunting element of the Tartessos mystery is its language and script. Classical accounts suggest a written form, yet no definitive inscriptions have survived. Without this key, we cannot fully access their ideas, governance, or history. Like the lost pages of a codex, Tartessos speaks to us only through fragmented artifacts, tantalizing hints in Greek texts, and the occasional metal or ceramic object, leaving the rest to interpretation and imagination. Visiting the Guadalquivir region today, one can envision a landscape once alive with bustling harbors, traders, and artisans. The river winds through fertile plains that would have nourished crops and settlements, while distant hills could have offered vantage points for defense and observation. Yet much of Tartessos' story remains submerged beneath centuries of sediment and human development. Walking the riverbanks, one feels a profound sense of absence, a civilization known yet invisible, tangible in fragments, yet fundamentally mysterious. Tartessos, like the Colossi of Memnon, the Nasca astronaut, and the Saihuit stone, challenges our understanding of history. It demonstrates the fragility of human endeavor and the power of time to erase even the most vibrant societies. Its disappearance prompts reflection on the forces, natural, cultural, and political, that can reshape the course of civilizations. And as we consider the wealth, knowledge, and artistry that once thrived along the Guadalquivir, we are left with the enduring question: what truths, innovations, and stories of Tartessos remain hidden beneath the sands, waiting for discovery, interpretation, or imagination to breathe them back into life? From the sun-scorched plains of southern Iberia, where Tartessos once flourished and vanished almost as mysteriously as it appeared, we now turn our attention to the shadowed wetlands of northern Europe. Here, in the cold, mist-laden bogs that stretch across Denmark, Germany, Ireland, and the Netherlands, lies a phenomenon both chilling and mesmerizing: the bog bodies. These human remains, remarkably preserved by peat and waterlogged soils, provide a direct, almost eerie window into lives lived thousands of years ago. Yet the circumstances of their deaths remain as haunting as the dark waters that held them for centuries. The first encounter with a bog body is unforgettable. Imagine stepping carefully over the spongy, wet terrain of a remote bog, mist curling along the surface, the air heavy with the scent of peat. Beneath the moss and mud, a figure emerges, its skin darkened, its hair intact, sometimes even eyelashes preserved. The flesh has the texture of leather, the limbs articulated, the facial features astonishingly detailed. Some bodies are clothed in scraps of wool or hides, while others lie naked, revealing an unsettling immediacy, as if time has merely paused rather than elapsed for millennia. These bodies are not relics of natural decay. They are preserved through a delicate balance of acidity, low oxygen, and tannins in the bog environment. The chemical composition halts bacterial decomposition, leaving skin, hair, and sometimes stomach contents remarkably intact. This preservation allows modern scientists to analyze diet, health, and even injuries with a clarity impossible in typical archaeological contexts. Yet despite these insights, the question that dominates every investigation is this: why did these people die, and under what circumstances were they placed or left in the bog? The bog bodies date primarily from the Iron Age, roughly 800 BCE to 400 CE, though some are older. They are found individually or in small groups, and often with dramatic signs of trauma. Some have been strangled, their necks bearing marks of cord or rope. Others show signs of blunt force trauma or piercing, suggesting violent deaths. A few were dismembered or show evidence of ritualistic positioning. And yet, despite centuries of scientific study, the reasons for their deaths remain speculative. Were they victims of crime, sacrifice, punishment, or warfare? The answers are tantalizingly out of reach. Scholars have proposed several theories. One prevalent interpretation frames the bodies within the context of ritual human sacrifice. Certain injuries, such as careful incisions or ceremonial binding, suggest intentionality beyond simple homicide. In some cases, accompanying artifacts, tokens, offerings, or personal items hint at ceremonial practices, possibly intended to appease gods, mark fertility, or ensure community prosperity. Could these individuals have been offerings to the earth itself, laid to rest in a watery underworld that mirrored the beliefs of Iron Age societies? Other bodies suggest more violent circumstances. Some display evidence of execution, rope or cord around the neck, blunt force trauma, or multiple injuries that indicate deliberate killing. In these cases, historians speculate about legal, punitive, or political motives. Were some of these individuals criminals, rebels, or outsiders singled out for ritualized execution? Yet the evidence is rarely conclusive, leaving room for doubt and imagination. The bog itself may have been seen as a liminal space, a boundary between the living world and the supernatural, making it a suitable stage for death of both symbolic and practical significance. One of the most chilling aspects of bog bodies is their anonymity. Unlike monumental tombs or inscriptions, most do not reveal names or identities. Some bodies show traces of care in burial or display, while others seem discarded. We can reconstruct hair color, diet, height, and sometimes even the last meals, yet the stories of these people, their fears, relationships, and experiences remain forever silent. Their faces, frozen in time, confront us with the incompleteness of history and the fragility of human life. Speculative theories add further intrigue. Some suggest that environmental pressures, such as famine or social upheaval, may have led to ritualized killings. Others propose that bogs were deliberately chosen to hide politically inconvenient deaths or violent episodes that the society preferred to obscure. Even fringe interpretations have emerged, imagining mysterious rites, supernatural beliefs, or interactions with unseen forces, emphasizing the enduring human fascination with unexplained death and preservation. The science of bog bodies continues to evolve. Modern methods, from radiocarbon dating to forensic analysis, have illuminated diet, health, and even genetic origins. Stable isotope analysis reveals that some individuals traveled widely in their lifetimes, while others were local to the region of their death. Microscopic studies of skin and hair reveal traces of diseases, nutritional status, and even stress prior to death. Yet, despite these advances, the central mystery endures. What prompted their violent or enigmatic deaths? Why the bog? And why this meticulous preservation? Visiting a bog today, with its spongy moss, still waters, and drifting mist, it is easy to imagine the same awe and fear that the Iron Age communities might have felt. The landscape itself seems charged with memory, a natural repository of human acts that ordinary Earth would have consumed long ago. The bog bodies lie in silent testament to lives ended abruptly, mysteries frozen in peat, and questions that demand patience, reflection, and imagination. Like Tartessos, the Saihuit stone, and the Nasca geoglyphs, the bog bodies remind us that the past is not always linear or fully knowable. They confront us with both humanity and enigma, forcing us to reckon with lives lived in societies that are distant yet strikingly vivid through the lens of preservation. And as we step back from the peat and mud, leaving behind these silent witnesses, one question lingers in the mind: what stories, truths, or secrets remain submerged in the bogs of Europe, waiting for the future to uncover, interpret, or imagine? From the silent, haunting wetlands where Europe's bog bodies lie preserved in peat, we shift to a scene both vibrant and disturbing: the streets of Strasbourg in the summer of 1518. It was here, in the heart of the Holy Roman Empire, that an extraordinary and inexplicable phenomenon erupted, what historians have come to call the dancing mania. Unlike the silent testimonies of the bogs, This was a spectacle of frenetic motion, a wave of compulsive, uncontrollable dancing that swept through the city with a force that was as perplexing as it was alarming. Imagine the narrow, cobbled streets of Strasbourg, crowded with timber-framed houses and bustling markets, suddenly overtaken by a single woman, Frau Trophea, who began to dance with no apparent reason, no music, no celebration. Her movements were urgent, relentless, and seemingly beyond her control. Within days, dozens more joined, and then hundreds. Observers described people twirling, leaping, and staggering through the streets, some collapsing from exhaustion, some dying from heart attack or stroke. The mania lasted for weeks, with no clear cause and no apparent cure, leaving the city in panic and authorities scrambling to understand this bizarre outbreak. Contemporary records describe scenes of chaotic energy and fear. Local physicians, clergy, and city officials attempted to intervene, offering remedies that ranged from prayer and fasting to music and staged dance halls, hoping to channel the movement in controlled environments. Some believed the phenomenon was a curse, a divine punishment for sin, while others suspected demonic possession. Letters and chronicles from the period convey both fascination and horror, revealing a society confronted with a phenomenon entirely outside its understanding. Modern historians and scientists have proposed a variety of explanations. Some suggest mass psychogenic illness, a psychological contagion triggered by extreme stress, famine, and disease. In 1518, Strasbourg had recently endured crop failures, disease outbreaks, and social unrest, conditions that may have created an environment ripe for collective hysteria. Could fear, grief, and anxiety have manifested physically, causing hundreds of individuals to dance compulsively, almost as if the body acted independently of reason? Other explanations focus on possible medical or neurological causes. Certain theories suggest ergotism, a poisoning from the fungus ergot that grows on damp rye, which can produce hallucinations, convulsions, and compulsive movements. Yet ergotism typically affects small populations with varying symptoms, while the dancing mania seemed selective and highly social, spreading rapidly from person to person. Could it be that biological and psychological factors combined with social dynamics to create a perfect storm of uncontrollable movement? Speculative interpretations add further intrigue. Some historians argue that the dancing mania may have had ritualistic or symbolic origins, perhaps connected to pre-Christian folk traditions or local cultural practices that resurfaced under stress. Others consider the possibility of social contagion amplified by the densely populated streets, a collective behavior phenomenon in which emotion and action feed on one another in a feedback loop, propelling individuals into frenzy. What is striking is how inexplicable it remained to those experiencing it, and how, despite the best efforts of authorities, it could not be fully contained or explained at the time. Eyewitness accounts provide haunting details. Chroniclers wrote of individuals dancing for days without pause, driven by a force they could not resist, their feet blistered, bodies exhausted, and eyes fixed in a trance-like focus. Some reports claim that people were encouraged to dance in public squares to work off the mania, yet the strategy sometimes exacerbated the problem. Townspeople feared both the phenomenon and its potential moral implications, questioning whether divine anger, demonic influence, or social unrest was the true cause. The dancing mania raises questions about human psychology, social behavior, and the limits of our understanding. Why did this phenomenon occur in Strasbourg, and why in 1518? Similar outbreaks were recorded elsewhere in Europe, sometimes in small villages, sometimes in larger towns. But the Strasbourg event remains one of the most dramatic and well-documented cases. It challenges modern observers to consider the interplay of environment, culture, biology, and psychology in shaping human experience, particularly when events defy explanation. Even centuries later, the phenomenon continues to inspire curiosity, research, and reflection. Historians examine archival documents for clues, while psychologists and sociologists explore the mechanisms of mass hysteria. The event is a stark reminder that human bodies and minds can respond to stress, emotion, and circumstance in extraordinary ways, producing outcomes that appear supernatural or inexplicable to contemporaries and even modern scholars. As we envision the crowded streets of 16th century Strasbourg, filled with the sounds of stamping feet, gasps, and cries, we are reminded of the fragility and unpredictability of human behavior. The dancing mania, like the bog bodies we previously explored, presents a mystery suspended between the tangible and the ephemeral. It is a story where the physical manifestation, dancing, exhaustion, collapse, intersects with the intangible, fear, stress, and communal psychology, leaving us to wonder how much of history's enigmas are shaped by forces we can perceive, and how much remain forever beyond comprehension. Standing today in the quiet squares of Strasbourg, with modern life resuming its rhythm over centuries-old cobblestones, the memory of 1518 lingers like a whisper. What compels the human body to act beyond the will of the mind? How much of human behavior is governed by unseen pressures, both internal and external, that can erupt in ways utterly unexpected? And perhaps most hauntingly, what other phenomena, unrecorded and unobserved, have swept through societies across time, leaving traces in documents, memories, and myth, yet no clear explanation to satisfy our curiosity? As we leave the mysterious silence of the Atlantic behind, where the USS Cyclops vanished without a trace, our journey of historical enigmas leads us to the frozen expanse of the Arctic, a landscape both mesmerizing and merciless. It was here, in the early 1840s, that one of the most haunting maritime disappearances in history unfolded: the Franklin Expedition. An ambitious voyage into uncharted polar waters, it promised discovery and glory, but instead it left only questions, whispers in the ice, and a chilling reminder of humanity's vulnerability against nature. The expedition, led by Sir John Franklin, consisted of two ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, and a crew of 129 men. They set out in 1845 to chart and navigate the Northwest Passage, a treacherous route linking the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Equipped with the most advanced technology of the era, steam engines, reinforced hulls, and extensive provisions, the ships were designed to endure the harsh Arctic. Yet even the best preparation could not anticipate the relentless power of ice, the disorienting monotony of the polar landscape, or the insidious threats that would slowly unravel the men and their mission. For months, the world awaited word. Letters, journals, and sightings were scarce. After the expedition failed to return, search parties were dispatched, uncovering fragments of a story both tragic and perplexing. Abandoned camps, scattered artifacts, and skeletal remains began to paint a picture of endurance, suffering, and desperation. The crew's fate remained enigmatic. How could such well-equipped ships and experienced sailors disappear so completely into a frozen wilderness? Evidence gradually emerged from the desolate Arctic. Skeletons revealed signs of malnutrition and disease, while journals recovered from survivors of early search parties described harsh winters, diminishing supplies, and the psychological strain of isolation. Some crew members resorted to extreme measures, including cannibalism, as documented in later forensic studies of the remains. The progression from discipline and hope to desperation and death is evident, yet it raises further questions. Why did both ships become trapped? And why did Franklin himself and his officers fail to navigate a path to survival? Mainstream explanations point to a combination of natural and human factors. Unpredictable sea ice could easily immobilize ships. Scurvy, lead poisoning from poorly canned provisions, and tuberculosis likely weakened the crew over time. Yet the Arctic is vast, and the disappearance of entire ships, even in treacherous conditions, is rare. Could the expedition have made errors in navigation or underestimated the complexity of polar currents and ice flows? Or was it simply the overwhelming power of the environment, indifferent to human ingenuity, that sealed their fate? Speculative theories add layers of intrigue. Some historians propose that conflict with local Inuit populations may have occurred, though accounts suggest interactions were largely peaceful. Others explore the possibility of magnetic anomalies affecting navigation or the influence of extreme weather phenomena, blizzards, sudden ice shifts, or even rare tidal surges that could have trapped or crushed the vessels. More fringe interpretations imagine hidden passages, secret knowledge of polar routes, or even supernatural forces, emphasizing the profound sense of mystery surrounding the expedition's disappearance. Archaeological and scientific discoveries in recent decades have shed light on the narrative, yet also deepened the enigma. In 2014 and 2016, the wrecks of HMS Erebus and HMS Terror were located beneath Arctic waters, remarkably preserved in cold, dark conditions. The discovery confirmed that the ships had succumbed to ice and abandonment rather than destruction by fire or explosion. Yet the details of the crew's final days, how they traveled across ice, what decisions were made, and which bodies succumbed first, remain obscured. The journals and letters found offer hints but cannot fully reconstruct the human drama that unfolded over months of isolation. The story of the Franklin expedition highlights the fragility of human endeavor in the face of extreme environments. Highly trained officers, well-equipped ships, and meticulous planning were not enough to overcome the relentless combination of cold, starvation, and uncertainty. The Arctic, silent and indifferent, claimed one of the most ambitious exploratory missions of its era, leaving only scattered remnants and enduring questions. How did seasoned sailors fail to escape the ice? Were there signs they misread, or decisions they regretted? And most hauntingly, what remains unrecorded, lost forever beneath layers of snow and ice? Walking across the barren, frozen landscapes where the expedition vanished, it is possible to sense both awe and melancholy. The ice preserves fragments of the past, the ship's hulls, personal effects, and traces of human activity frozen in time. But much is irretrievable. Each discovery raises as many questions as it answers, underscoring the Arctic's enduring capacity to conceal and mystify. The disappearance of the Franklin expedition, like the USS Cyclops and the vanished civilizations we have explored, reminds us that history is often defined as much by absence as by presence. Some stories are recorded in detail, others preserved only in fragments, and some vanish entirely, leaving human imagination to fill the void. And so, as we leave the frozen Arctic behind and reflect on the lost sailors of the Erebus and Terror, we are confronted with questions that endure over 175 years later. How did the Franklin expedition truly end? What choices shaped their final days? And what secrets of survival, failure, and endurance remain locked beneath the ice? The mystery, though partially illuminated by modern exploration, continues to challenge our understanding, inviting contemplation of human courage and vulnerability in the face of the unknown. From the frantic streets of Strasbourg, where bodies moved with an unexplainable compulsion, we now journey across the Alps into the verdant valleys of northern Italy, to a landscape etched with human history in stone. Here, along the steep slopes and sun-dappled meadows of Valcamonica, lie tens of thousands of petroglyphs, rock carvings that span millennia, a silent archive of lives, beliefs, and mysteries that have long resisted full understanding. These ancient images are at once familiar and enigmatic, offering glimpses of past societies while leaving their meanings tantalizingly out of reach. The petroglyphs are carved into the jagged rock faces and boulders that rise from the valley floor, their surfaces smoothed and weathered by wind, rain, and time. Upon closer inspection, the figures emerge: warriors bearing spears and shields, dancers encircled in spirals, animals both real and fantastical, geometric patterns that repeat with almost ritual precision. Some carvings depict scenes of daily life, agriculture, hunting, and pastoral labor, while others hint at ceremonial or spiritual activity, suggesting that Valcamonica was not merely a home, but a landscape imbued with symbolic significance. Dating these carvings has revealed a remarkable temporal breadth. The earliest images appear as far back as 8000 BCE, while others extend into the early centuries of the first millennium CE. Over this vast span, the style, content, and focus of the carvings evolve, reflecting shifts in culture, technology, and possibly belief systems. Yet, despite these chronological markers, the purpose and full meaning of the petroglyphs remain elusive. Were they created as messages to the living, guidance for the dead, or as spiritual tools intended to influence unseen forces? Scholars have long debated the significance of the motifs. The prevalence of spirals, circles, and human-animal hybrids suggests symbolic or religious importance. Some researchers argue that the carvings encode astronomical or calendrical information, aligning with celestial events or seasonal cycles. Others propose that the images record social or historical events, victories in battle, migrations, or the rise and fall of local clans. But the rock carvings resist definitive interpretation, their creators long gone, and the cultural context obscured by millennia of silence. Certain figures invite particularly intense speculation. Human forms appear in poses that suggest movement, ritual, or even trance states, echoing patterns found in other prehistoric art across Europe. Animals are sometimes depicted realistically, other times abstracted or fused with human elements, hinting at myth, totemism, or storytelling that defies literal explanation. What did these images mean to those who carved them? Were they teaching tools, spiritual guides, or cryptic codes whose secrets were understood only by a select few? The scale and density of Valcamonica are extraordinary. Tens of thousands of carvings cover the valley walls, with clusters forming almost continuous narratives in some areas. How could such an immense body of work have been created without a formalized society or written record? What drove successive generations to continue carving, refining, and preserving these images across millennia? The persistence of this practice suggests that the act of carving itself, touching stone, shaping symbols, leaving marks, held deep significance, perhaps as an offering to gods, spirits, or the land itself. Speculative theories have also emerged. Some suggest that the carvings represent a form of prehistoric map, encoding territorial boundaries, water sources, or migratory routes. Others see in the repetitive geometric patterns a proto-writing system, a method of recording knowledge in symbolic form. Yet these interpretations remain hypothetical, lacking definitive evidence, and highlight the larger mystery. Valcamonica is a repository of human thought preserved in stone, yet largely inaccessible to modern understanding. The environment of Valcamonica contributes to the aura of mystery. The valley is framed by mountains that rise sharply from its floor, creating a natural amphitheater where the carvings are exposed to sunlight, shadow, and the shifting seasons. This setting may have enhanced the spiritual or ritual significance of the carvings, linking human activity with the rhythms of the natural world. It is easy to imagine ancient communities walking along these rock faces, observing the carvings in ceremony or contemplation, sensing a connection between the images and the forces around them, forces that remain invisible to us today. Modern technology has revealed additional layers of intrigue. 3D scanning, digital mapping, and microscopic analysis allow researchers to examine the depth, order, and technique of the carvings, revealing subtle details invisible to the naked eye. These analyses show that some carvings were deeply etched and labor-intensive, suggesting that the act of carving was deliberate and meaningful, not casual decoration. Yet, despite these insights, the central question persists: what was the intended purpose of these images, and how were they understood by their creators? The Petroglyphs of Valcamonica remind us of the enduring human desire to leave a mark upon the world, to communicate across time and space, and to seek meaning in the physical and spiritual realms. They occupy a space between art, ritual, and information, simultaneously comprehensible and cryptic, familiar in form, yet mysterious in function. As we trace the carved lines with our eyes, we confront the depth of human creativity and the limitations of our understanding, realizing that some messages are preserved not in language but in symbol, waiting silently for insight, intuition, or imagination to unlock them. Standing before the rock faces today, with sunlight striking the etched figures and casting shadows along their grooves, one cannot help but sense a dialogue across the millennia, a conversation with people who lived, believed, and recorded their presence in ways both deliberate and enigmatic. And as we step back from the valley, leaving the petroglyphs to their ancient silence, we are left with a question that echoes across time. What knowledge, stories, or beliefs remain hidden in these carvings, waiting for a future mind to understand what the people of Valcamonica wished to convey so long ago? From the etched rocks of Valcamonica, where humanity left its mark upon stone with painstaking care, we now journey across the oceans to the arid plains of southern Peru. Here lies one of the most enigmatic landscapes ever inscribed by human hands, the Nasca lines. Stretching across hundreds of square kilometers of desert, these immense geoglyphs, depicting animals, humans, and geometric forms, are visible fully only from the sky. From ground level, they appear as faint grooves and shallow channels in the earth, their grand scale almost defying comprehension. The Nasca lines are astonishing in both ambition and precision. Stylized monkeys twist across the desert floor, hummingbirds hover mid-flight, spiders crawl in elegant arcs, and enormous straight lines stretch for kilometers, cutting across the landscape like arrows pointing to unknown destinations. Some geometric forms are intricate trapezoids, spirals, and zigzags. Scholars have determined that these lines were etched between 500 BCE and 500 CE by the Nasca culture, yet the purpose of these creations remains profoundly elusive. The technique itself is remarkable. Ancient workers scraped away the reddish, iron-rich pebbles of the desert to reveal the lighter-colored soil beneath, creating high-contrast markings that have endured for centuries in the region's dry, windless climate. The simplicity of the tools belies the precision and planning required. Some figures measure over 200 meters, their proportions maintained with a scale that seems almost impossible without aerial perspective. How could a civilization without flight conceive of images designed for observation from the sky? The most conventional explanations focus on ritual and religious practice. Some researchers suggest that the lines were part of a complex system of ceremonial pathways, perhaps created to honor deities associated with water and fertility. The arid environment of the Nasca Desert made water the ultimate source of life, and many of the lines point toward aquifers, mountains, or riverbeds. Were the geoglyphs intended as offerings, visible to gods from above, or as markers in sacred ceremonies performed on the ground? Yet such explanations raise further questions. The sheer scale of the lines and their variety suggest that they were not merely functional. Were they designed to communicate with distant observers, to coordinate ritual activity, or to encode knowledge of astronomical or calendrical systems. Some researchers have proposed that the straight lines align with solstices, equinoxes, or other celestial events. Could the Nasca have been mapping the heavens onto the desert floor, creating a terrestrial reflection of cosmic patterns? More speculative interpretations have emerged over the decades. Some have suggested that the figures represent symbolic messages intended for outsiders, perhaps even visitors from other lands or realms, given that many of the images are fully legible only from an aerial perspective. Others argue that the lines could be a form of prehistoric art meant to impress or unify communities, or perhaps a coded communication system whose meaning has been lost over centuries. Theories range from the practical to the fantastical, each offering insight, yet none providing definitive answers. The human figures etched among the animals in geometric patterns add another layer of mystery. Some anthropomorphic forms appear to be priests or shamans, depicted with headdresses or ritual implements. Others seem to be dancing, walking, or gesturing, as if frozen in ceremonial motion. These figures may hold clues to the social or religious significance of the geoglyphs, hinting at a civilization deeply invested in symbolic expression and spiritual connection. Yet without accompanying texts or records, we are left to infer meaning solely from the lines themselves, an exercise both fascinating and frustrating. The desert environment enhances the sense of enigma. Viewed from the surrounding foothills or small aircraft, the patterns emerge gradually, revealing forms that are otherwise invisible. The play of sunlight and shadow, the undulating sand, and the sheer scale create an experience both sublime and perplexing, as if the landscape itself were a deliberate canvas designed to provoke awe. Could the act of creation have been as important as the finished product, a meditative or communal endeavor that tied human activity to the rhythm of the land? Modern studies, including aerial photography, drone mapping, and satellite imagery, have uncovered previously unknown figures, highlighting the sophistication and extensiveness of Nasca artistry. Yet each new discovery only deepens the mystery. Despite centuries of observation and analysis, we still do not know why these lines were created, how the Nasca maintained such precision, or what full significance the figures held within their society. Their purpose remains tantalizingly beyond our reach. The Nasca lines, like the Petroglyphs of Valcamonica, compel us to reflect on the persistence of human creativity and the desire to leave enduring marks upon the world. They reveal a civilization capable of extraordinary vision, capable of translating thought into massive, enduring forms, and yet leave us asking the same haunting questions that echo across all historical mysteries. Why were these shapes made? What messages were intended, and for whom? And what aspects of human experience, thought, and belief remain hidden from our understanding, lost to time yet preserved in enduring form? As we gaze across the arid expanse of the Nasca Desert, tracing the lines that stretch to the horizon, it is impossible not to feel a sense of awe and curiosity. The lines speak silently across centuries, urging us to contemplate the ingenuity and mystery of their creators, and leaving us with a final question as compelling now as it must have been then. What truths, rituals, or visions of the world did the Nasca intend to communicate through these monumental, inscrutable markings, and how much of their knowledge remains waiting, quietly, in the desert sands for us to discover? From the arid Nasca Desert, where ancient lines stretch across the earth as messages to the sky, we now turn our gaze to the vast, unpredictable expanse of the open ocean, where another mystery unfolds, one not carved in stone but set afloat upon the waves. It is the story of the Mary Celeste, a merchant brigantine that, in December of 1872, was discovered drifting in the Atlantic Ocean near the Azores, completely abandoned, yet remarkably intact. The scene that greeted those who boarded the ship was both ordinary and extraordinary. food cooking on the stove, personal belongings undisturbed, sails set, and the vessel under control, yet no crew in sight. The Mary Celeste had left New York bound for Genoa, Italy, carrying a cargo of denatured alcohol. On board were 7 crew members and the captain's family, a small, tightly knit group who should have maintained the vessel with diligence throughout the voyage. When the passing ship Dei Gratia spotted the Mary Celeste, the deck was in order, the cargo mostly untouched, and the logbooks up to date. Yet the lifeboat was missing. The crew vanished without a trace. How could a fully functioning ship, in fair weather, with no sign of struggle, be emptied of its human occupants? Contemporary accounts emphasize the eerie calmness of the scene. Objects were in their places, clothing neatly folded, valuables untouched, and barrels of alcohol secure in the hold. Yet the human presence had evaporated, leaving behind a ghostly trace of normalcy. The phenomenon captivated the imagination of maritime communities, writers, and the press, who speculated endlessly. Was it piracy, mutiny, or a violent storm? None of these explanations fit the evidence. There were no signs of violence, the cargo remained largely unmolested, and the vessel had not sustained damage consistent with a sudden emergency. Over the decades, historians and investigators have offered numerous theories. Some suggest that a sudden natural event, a waterspout, a rogue wave, or an explosion of alcohol fumes, might have caused the crew to abandon ship in panic. Yet these scenarios struggle to explain why the vessel was seaworthy, with sails intact, and why essential belongings and documents were left behind. Others propose human intervention, piracy or mutiny, yet no evidence of struggle or missing goods supports these ideas. Could the crew have been victims of a strange collective psychological reaction, succumbing to fear or superstition in an unforgiving maritime environment? Speculative and more mysterious explanations have persisted in popular imagination. Some posit paranormal involvement, an invisible hand guiding them from the vessel, or even alien abduction, a testament to how unsettlingly inexplicable the case remains. The Mary Celeste has inspired countless fictionalized accounts, each imagining motives, horrors, or misadventures beyond what historical records confirm. Yet the real story, grounded in the meticulous logbooks, official inquiries, and testimonies of those who found her, is no less compelling. A perfectly maintained ship, drifting alone, its human caretakers vanished. The ship's discovery led to formal investigations, but answers remained elusive. Maritime courts examined the logs, the cargo, and the condition of the vessel, ultimately declaring the ship abandoned under mysterious circumstances. While insurance claims were paid and records archived, the disappearance of Captain Briggs, his family, and crew became a permanent enigma. Scholars continue to scrutinize weather reports, ocean currents, and human behavior to assess plausible explanations, yet none conclusively resolves the mystery. One of the most haunting aspects is the nature of the crew's disappearance itself. If they had left voluntarily, why was the lifeboat not recovered? If forced by danger, why were essential supplies left behind? And what of the timing? The sudden, unexplained evacuation of a functioning ship under fair conditions. Each question deepens the puzzle, leaving only fragments of evidence for modern minds to piece together. The Mary Celeste also serves as a reflection on human vulnerability and the unpredictability of the natural world. The vastness of the Atlantic, the capriciousness of wind and wave, and the fragile line between safety and peril underscore how easily circumstances can spiral beyond comprehension. The ship is a reminder that the ocean holds secrets not just of sunken vessels or lost treasures, but of sudden, inexplicable human disappearance, events that challenge our sense of control and understanding. The story of the Mary Celeste resonates beyond maritime history. It asks us to consider how well we truly know the people around us, how fleetingly fragile human order can be, and how mysteries may linger even in the presence of seemingly complete information. The empty decks, the undisturbed belongings, and the silent ocean form a tableau both ordinary and surreal, prompting reflection on the thin boundary between explanation and wonder. As we visualize the Mary Celeste drifting, bathed in the cold light of the Atlantic sun, we are confronted by the limits of deduction and the enduring power of mystery. What compelled the crew to abandon a seaworthy vessel? Did they succumb to fear, accident, or unseen forces? Or was it a combination of factors that eludes our modern analysis? Each theory, no matter how meticulous or imaginative, only accentuates the sense of profound uncertainty. And so the Mary Celeste drifts through history as it once did across the ocean, a vessel both known and unknowable, a stark reminder that some mysteries defy resolution. Its story compels us to imagine the unknown, to explore the edges of human experience, and to confront the silent questions left behind when lives vanish without a trace. What truly happened on that cold December day in 1872? And what other enigmas, hidden in the vastness of sea and time, remain just out of reach, waiting for the gaze of those who dare to search? From the silent decks of the Mary Celeste, drifting in the Atlantic with its human occupants, mysteriously vanished, we now travel to the rugged cliffs and arid caves near the Dead Sea, where a very different kind of enigma awaits. One etched not in the ocean's waves, but in the resilience of metal. Here lies the Copper Scroll, a singular artifact among the famed Dead Sea Scrolls, whose existence and contents have captivated scholars, adventurers, and treasure hunters for decades. Unlike its fragile parchment companions, this scroll is composed entirely of thin sheets of copper, carefully inscribed with a meticulous inventory of hidden treasures, yet one whose reality has never been fully confirmed. The Copper Scroll is remarkable from the moment it is seen. Rolled into a tight cylinder, the metal is etched with precise letters that have endured the centuries, their grooves resisting decay in the harsh, salty environment of the caves at Qumran. The text enumerates dozens of locations, detailing buried wealth in the form of gold, silver, and precious artifacts. Each entry is meticulously catalogued, providing distances, landmarks, and references that suggest a practical, methodical hand at work. Yet the scroll is also maddeningly cryptic, its coordinates and descriptions tantalizingly specific but difficult, if not impossible, to reconcile with the modern landscape. Discovered in 1952, the Copper Scroll immediately set itself apart from the other Dead Sea Scrolls. While the majority of the collection consists of religious texts, hymns, and legal codices, this metal manuscript reads like a treasure map from antiquity. Its age, generally placed around the 1st century CE, situates it within a period of intense political and religious turbulence in Judea, an era of Roman occupation, revolt, and hidden sects. Could the scroll have been a real inventory of temple treasures, carefully hidden to protect them from invaders? Or was it a symbolic or ritualistic document, meant to preserve knowledge of wealth and sanctity for future generations? Scholars have examined the text with painstaking care. The scroll is organized into hundreds of entries, each specifying quantities, locations, and occasionally directions that suggest a traveler or seeker could locate the wealth if the instructions were correctly interpreted. Yet the descriptions are couched in landmarks that may have shifted over 2 millennia. Rivers dried, hills reshaped, and settlements disappeared. Many attempts to reconcile the text with the modern geography of the region have yielded partial results, but no verified recovery of the treasures has ever occurred. Does this mean the wealth was removed long ago, never existed, or remains hidden, awaiting a meticulous eye to rediscover it? The very material of the scroll adds to its intrigue. Copper, though durable, is heavy and difficult to work with. The choice to inscribe the text onto metal rather than parchment suggests deliberate intention, permanence, security, and a certain secrecy. Unlike fragile scrolls, The copper scroll could survive the elements, fire, or even deliberate concealment. Was the durability meant to preserve knowledge for future generations? Or was it simply the most practical medium available to a scribe tasked with recording immense wealth? Speculative interpretations abound. Some researchers propose that the scroll lists treasures from the Second Temple in Jerusalem, hidden during times of Roman unrest. Others suggest that it could be a record of funds from the Essenes, the ascetic sect associated with Qumran, meant to support ritual or communal purposes. A more fringe theory even entertains the possibility that the scroll points to lost knowledge or sacred artifacts, items imbued with religious or mystical significance rather than mere material value. Each interpretation illuminates possibilities while leaving the ultimate truth frustratingly elusive. The challenge of locating the treasures has drawn explorers and adventurers to the harsh Judean wilderness, where caves and ravines twist in ways that both mirror and obscure the scroll's descriptions. Every canyon, ridge, and valley becomes a potential site, yet the extreme environment and lack of definitive markers have thwarted every attempt at systematic recovery. The copper scroll tantalizes. It provides immense detail, yet demands intuition, deduction, and perhaps even luck to translate its ancient coordinates into modern understanding. Beyond the tangible question of treasure, the scroll also prompts reflection on the human impulse to hide, record, and preserve. Why inscribe wealth with such precision and care, only to risk its permanent loss? What does this document reveal about the people who created it? Their fears, their hopes, their understanding of security, value, and secrecy. The copper scroll is a window into a mindset both pragmatic and mysterious, revealing a society deeply concerned with continuity, possession, and preservation, yet shrouded in the ambiguities of time. The scroll's existence also raises profound questions about the reliability of human memory, record-keeping, and interpretation. Over centuries, translations have varied, landmarks have shifted, and assumptions have layered themselves atop historical fact. Can we ever truly know what the original author intended? Or is the copper scroll destined to remain a tantalizing enigma, a puzzle whose pieces are scattered across geography, time, and imagination? As we study the delicate grooves etched into copper, it is impossible not to feel the presence of the ancient scribe, carefully inscribing each letter, aware that generations yet unborn would one day confront these words. The scroll is both concrete and elusive, a physical object that can be held, yet a mystery that cannot be fully grasped. And in this tension lies its enduring power, a reminder that the past is not merely a collection of facts, but a landscape of secrets, intentions, and questions waiting patiently to be explored. The copper scroll challenges us to consider the intersection of materiality and mystery, to ponder the treasures it describes, and to imagine the human narratives that surround them. Were these riches ever recovered, or do they still lie hidden beneath centuries of earth and stone? And what other secrets, recorded in durable form yet imperceptible to most, await discovery, quietly defying our attempts to fully comprehend the past? From the rugged caves near the Dead Sea, where the copper scroll preserves secrets of ancient treasure in indestructible metal, our journey now leads us to a site where mystery and foreboding converge in stone. In the heart of Alexandria, Egypt, a city steeped in history, legend, and layers of human ambition, lies the Black Sarcophagus, a massive, obsidian-hued tomb that has both awed and unnerved those who have encountered it. Discovered in 2018 by archaeologists working along the city's shores, this monolithic coffin is unlike any other in the ancient world, and it carries a weight of mystery as heavy as the stone from which it is hewn. The sarcophagus itself is imposing, carved from a single slab of black granite, with a sheen that almost seems to absorb the sunlight rather than reflect it. Measuring over 2 meters in length and nearly 1.5 meters in height, its sheer bulk speaks of monumental labor, ingenuity, and intent. The exterior is etched with hieroglyphs and carved motifs, some familiar, some strange, a series of serpentine figures and abstract symbols whose precise meanings remain debated. But it is the interior that has captured global attention. A toxic, dense liquid, greenish in color, fills the sarcophagus, emitting a chemical aroma that prevents close examination. Early analyses suggested that it could be hydrogen sulfide or a similar compound, perhaps a byproduct of decomposition, yet its precise nature remains uncertain. The discovery of the black sarcophagus sparked immediate fascination and fear. Archaeologists and scientists approached with caution, donning protective equipment to study its contents. When opened, it revealed skeletal remains, human in form, but warped in posture, lying submerged in the mysterious liquid. Radiocarbon dating has not yet yielded definitive results, though preliminary estimates place the tomb within the late Hellenistic to early Roman period, a time of great cultural convergence in Alexandria, when Egyptian, Greek, and Roman influences collided in art, architecture, and ritual. The enigmatic liquid has prompted as much speculation as the coffin itself. Could it have been an intentional preservative, a chemical concoction designed to keep the remains intact for millennia? Or is it the result of some unusual natural reaction, perhaps caused by the interaction of minerals, decomposition, and water seepage over centuries? Some fringe theories propose more ominous possibilities: a cursed tomb, a ritual of unknown origin, or even a form of ancient biotechnology whose purpose has been lost to time. Whatever its origin, the substance has created an aura of dread around the sarcophagus, reinforcing its place as a truly singular archaeological enigma. Equally compelling are the hieroglyphs and carvings adorning the tomb's exterior. Some figures appear to depict traditional funerary iconography, protective deities, ritual offerings, and guardians of the afterlife. Yet other elements are more obscure, abstract, and even unsettling, defying conventional interpretation. Scholars have debated whether the carvings represent a unique local variation of Egyptian funerary art, or whether they encode information, warnings, rituals, or secret knowledge intended only for those initiated into the tomb's mysteries. How much of this symbolism was practical, meant to honor and preserve the dead, and how much was intended to intimidate or confound intruders? The black sarcophagus also raises profound questions about the person or persons entombed within. Who warranted such an extraordinary and labor-intensive burial? Was it a ruler, a priest, or a figure of secretive authority whose identity has been deliberately obscured? The size, weight, and craftsmanship of the coffin suggest access to considerable resources, yet no records, inscriptions, or references in contemporary texts have provided a clear answer. In the absence of corroborating historical documentation, the sarcophagus itself becomes both record and riddle, its very presence demanding inquiry and reflection. In the broader context of Alexandria's layered history, the black sarcophagus stands as a reminder of the city's capacity for both wonder and terror. Alexandria was a crossroads of civilization, a center of learning, trade, and spiritual practice. Its libraries, temples, and tombs spoke of ambition and reverence, yet many secrets have been lost to fire, flood, and time. Could this sarcophagus have been deliberately designed to survive centuries of neglect, to guard a truth or power deemed too dangerous or sacred to reveal? And if so, what might the toxic liquid and enigmatic inscriptions signify in terms of ritual knowledge, preservation techniques, or beliefs about life, death, and the afterlife? The mystery deepens when considering the methods of its construction. Carving such a massive monolith from black granite would have required sophisticated engineering, immense labor, and extraordinary skill. transporting and placing it in its final position within the tomb adds another layer of complexity. Was this work the product of a well-organized state apparatus, a secretive cult, or some combination of both? The effort invested suggests significance beyond the ordinary, a person or purpose that history has largely obscured. Finally, there is the question of what lies beyond the black stone and the toxic liquid. While protective measures have allowed only limited examination, the remains themselves hint at stories that cannot yet be told. Bones distorted, perhaps by the unusual environment, perhaps by rituals unknown to modern science. How did these individuals live? How did they die? And why were they placed in such a singular resting place, combining artistry, engineering, and chemistry in a way that has no parallel in surviving records? The black sarcophagus of Alexandria endures as a monument to the unknown. It challenges archaeologists, chemists, historians, and the curious alike to confront the limits of observation and understanding. Its heavy stone, enigmatic inscriptions, and impenetrable interior preserve not only human remains, but also the lingering questions of intent, ritual, and identity. As we step back from this monolithic tomb, we are left with the sense of both awe and unease. How many secrets lie within its shadowed interior? What ancient knowledge, ritual, or history might be locked in the dark liquid that resists analysis? And perhaps most compellingly, what other enigmas, silent, dangerous, or deliberately hidden, await discovery in the layers of Alexandria, a city whose sands and stones have long guarded their most chilling stories?